Chapter 1. Great G Dynasty, Public House Chu, Li steered the boat on the lake. The lake breeze caressed his face, making him feel refreshed. The Public House was a huge lake with 99 islands. The martial arts hall that he wanted to go to was 18 miles away from the East Garden. On the small boat, he had a medium build and wore green clothes that fluttered in the wind. His appearance was ordinary, but he had a heroic air about him. As he looked at the boundless lake, his thoughts drifted far away. 19 years, 2 months, and 3 days. It had been 19 years, 2 months, and 3 days. He was a high-energy physics researcher, a genius with a bright future, and a great scientist in the future. After a small mistake in his experiment, he was sent to this world and reincarnated into a new life. Bang! Bang! A muffled sound broke his train of thought. He turned around and saw a shining golden carp jumping on the boat. Chuli shook his head and bent down to throw the carp back into the lake. As he straightened his body, a tall building came into view. The 100-meter-tall building shone with a bronze light. It was heavy and solemn, fully displaying the prestige of the House of High Dukes. This bronze building was the martial arts practice hall. In front of the martial arts practice hall was a spacious martial arts practice field that was covered in red mud. Hundreds of people were practicing martial arts, or practicing saber, sword, fist, palm, or even sparring with each other. It was an extremely lively scene. Chuli went ashore by boat and stepped onto the martial arts field. He had only taken a few steps when a handsome young man suddenly appeared. His face was like jade, his eyebrows were like swords, and he was in high spirits. He was a head taller than Chuli. He crossed his arms and looked down at him. "Chuli, what are you doing here?" Chuli furrowed his brows. "Move aside. A good dog doesn't block the way." Hee. The handsome youth chuckled and said, "Could it be that you want to practice martial arts?" Chuli suddenly smiled and continued to walk forward. "Zhou Feiyang, if I fall to the ground and scream in pain, do you believe that you won't be able to bear the consequences?" The guard of the mansion forbade private fights and killing each other. The guards of the mansion were divided into protectors and imperial guards, one for martial arts and the other for literature. Private fights between the two were especially strictly forbidden. A light punishment would be a demotion in rank, and a heavy punishment would be expulsion from the mansion. Chuli was an unranked scribe, while Zhou Feiyang was a rank 8 protector. It was a taboo for a protector to attack a scribe. Chuli fell to the ground, screaming in pain. No matter how talented Zhou Feiyang was, he would still be severely punished. Zhou Feiyang furrowed his brows. "Chuli, you're really shameless." Chuli continued to move forward. Zhou Feiyang stepped aside, and his handsome face darkened. "Chuli, this is all you can do." Chuli laughed. "To deal with an idiot like you, little tricks are enough." Zhou Feiyang glared at Chuli, his fists clenched tighter and tighter, as if he was going to strike at any moment. Chuli, on the other hand, looked at him lazily, provoking him. Zhou Feiyang suddenly smiled brightly and waved his hand. "Sister Zhao." In the distance, a graceful and beautiful girl walked over. Her skin was as white as snow, her eyes were almond-shaped, and her eyebrows were shapely. Her temperament was delicate and gentle like water. Chuli's expression changed slightly. Zhao Ying had entered the public house at the same time as them. She was beautiful, kind, and gentle. She was the kind of woman that any man would fall in love with. "Brother Zhao." Zhao Ying walked over gracefully and said in surprise, "Brother Chu." Chuli smelled her faint fragrance and smiled. "Junior sister Zhao, long time no see." Ever since he was assigned to the East Garden, he spent most of his time in the library. He wanted to use knowledge to change his destiny, so he rarely came to the Kung Fu Performing Hall. This time, he came to the Kung Fu Performing Hall because he encountered a problem with the minute pulse cleansing technique. He wanted to read the secret manuals and cultivation notes related to the technique. Zhao Ying smiled. "Congratulations, Brother Chu. The East Garden is a good job." Chuli smiled and nodded. "Not bad." The East Garden belonged to the Jade Guardian Island of the Third Lady, Xiaoqi. There were only 2 scribes, Chu Li and Li Yu. Not only did they have free time, but they also had the chance to meet the Third Lady. Once the third lady took a liking to him, it would only be a matter of time before he became successful. Zhou Feiyang took a deep breath. This guy was too lucky to be assigned to the East Garden. God was blind. He had to teach him a lesson. Junior sister Zhao, don't bother with this trash. I just mastered the delusion split yesterday. Why don't we spar? Brother Zhua. Zhao Ying frowned. She felt that Zhou Feiyang's words were unpleasant. All right, I won't call him trash. Zhou Feiyang quickly smiled and glanced at Chu Li. Even if he's trash, you're still talking. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Junior sister Zhao, it's all right. Chu Li smiled and said, there's no need to bother with this kind of arrogant idiot. Senior brother Chu. Zhao Ying rebuked. Chu Li raised his hand in surrender. Sister Zhao, come to the East Garden to play. The scenery is beautiful and Brother Li's culinary skills are excellent. Sure. Zhao Ying smiled and said, I've always wanted to see it. The East Garden. What's there to see? Zhou Feiyang pursed his lips. They're just flowers and grasses. If you have the time, why don't you train your martial arts instead? Based on what you're saying, the third lady and master, Xiao Taiying, have lost their ambition to indulge in worldly pleasures. Are they not as good as you? Chu Li smiled faintly. The West Garden belonged to Master Xiao Taiying. Zhou Feiyang's handsome face turned red as he sneered. He decided not to bicker with him. Senior brother Zhua, brother Chu, Zhao Ying said with dissatisfaction. Can you guys stop for a while? Senior brother Chu, I'll go over to play. You can go back to your own business. Chu Li looked at her deeply. Junior sister Zhao, some people only have good looks. You'll only be able to see through a person's heart after some time. Junior sister, don't trust others so easily. Chu Li, what is the meaning of this? Zhou Feiyang scoffed. Chu Li ignored him and gave Zhao Ying a fist salute with a smile. Zhao Ying turned around and left. Zhou Feiyang wanted to follow her. Before he left, he suddenly stretched out his hand when Zhao Ying was not paying attention. His palm almost landed on Chu Li's face. He was very confident that Chu Li would not be able to dodge it in time. It looked like he was not paying attention, but he had channeled his inner energy. Chu Li tilted his head slightly. Zhou Feiyang's fingertip brushed past his cheek. He could feel the breeze. That slap was not light. Slap. The crisp sound of slap was heard. Chu Li's left palm slapped his own face. The sound was crisp and clear. He did not use much strength, but the sound was very loud. He quickly withdrew his hand. Zhao Ying quickly turned her head to look. Chu Li's expression did not change. It was as if that slap did not land on his face. Zhou Feiyang stared at him with a dark expression. Chu Li smiled and touched his own face. What good skill. I'm impressed. Zhou Feiyang stared at him. Senior Zhua. Zhao Ying's face darkened. I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it. Zhou Feiyang gritted his teeth and squeezed his voice out. He said coldly, I'm sure junior brother Chu won't mind. Am I right, junior brother Chu? Chu Li turned his head and smiled. Junior sister Zhao, forget it. Zhao Ying looked at him embarrassedly. She quickly pulled Zhou Feiyang away. If they stayed any longer, the two of them would definitely start fighting. Chu Li stared at Zhao Ying's graceful silhouette and did not move. He touched his burning left cheek and activated the omniscient mirror to suppress his emotions. If it were not for the omniscient mirror, he would have fallen into Zhou Feiyang's trap. This world respected martial arts. It was a concept that had been deeply ingrained in him since he was young. Zhao Ying was gentle and kind. She protected him openly and secretly. This touched him. However, he was a man. He needed a woman to protect him. As a man, he could not stand it. Zhou Feiyang, the delusion split. He passed through the crowd in the martial arts field and entered the Hall of Martial Arts. He untied the wooden tag on his waist and passed it to the young man in front of the hall. The young man's eyes were like lightning. He glanced at him and signaled that he could enter. Rows of bookshelves entered his eyes. He walked slowly. Occasionally, he would stop and take out a book. He would flip through it quickly and put it back. He would then stop again and flip through another book. In 2 hours, he had flipped through 22 books. It was as if he already knew where these books were. All he had to do was take them out. It was actually his first time here. He had read the minute pulse cleansing technique in the library. The entire Hall of Martial Arts appeared in his mind. Every row of bookshelves, every book's name, was clear and vivid in his mind. He walked to the second floor and went straight to the third bookshelf. He took out the Delusion Split Manual from the second floor and flipped through it. He then took out 7 more secret manuals. They were the cultivation notes of the Delusion Split Manual. When he left the Hall of Martial Arts, his mind had already been imprinted with 30 secret manuals, 22 notes of the Minute Pulse Cleansing Technique, 1 Delusion Split Manual, and 7 Delusion Split Manual. He steered the boat on the lake. A gentle breeze blew. His anger had already dissipated. The 30 secret manuals in his mind began to merge. The noon sun shone brightly. He steered the boat back to the East Garden. The East Garden was a small island with a circumference of 2 miles. It was divided into many flower beds. Each flower bed had a rare flower. The entire island was filled with the fragrance of flowers. There was only one small courtyard on the island. Chuli pushed the door open and entered the courtyard. The cool air hit him in the face. A big tree covered half of the courtyard, driving away the heat. He entered the west wing and came out with an emerald-tipped sword. He swung it in the middle of the courtyard slowly like a Tai Chi sword. After a while, a layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. He had an eidetic memory. Every secret manual he read would be imprinted in his mind. The Delusion Split Manual that he had just learned from the Hall of Martial Arts was indeed powerful. However, it also consumed a lot of energy. Creak! A sturdy young man with a round face and small eyes walked out of the main hall. He swayed like a black bear. He stretched his back and yawned twice. Then, he said lazily, "Brother, you're back so early?" Chuli was focused on his sword practice. Yes, Li was a rank 9 scribe. The two of them were in charge of the East Garden. He had a good appetite, excellent culinary skills, and good martial arts. However, he was afraid of death and did not challenge the rank 9 tower. He was willing to be a scribe. The scribes and protectors of the public house were divided into 9 ranks. The difference in pay was 10 times that of a scribe. The scribes were paid less. Their rank depended on their experience. Rank 9 in 3 years, rank 8 in 10, rank 7 in 20, rank 6 in 40, and rank 5 in 70. The promotion of a protector's rank did not depend on anything else. It depended on their martial arts. If they passed the rank 9 tower, they would be promoted by 1 rank. Their pay was high, and they could often leave the public house for missions. Their lives were colorful, unlike the scribes who could only stay in the public house to serve others. Anyone with a bit of ability would become a protector. Liu shook his neck and stretched his legs. His joints let out a series of cracking sounds. Then he swung his fists. His fists were like shooting stars, whistling through the air. "Brother, don't practice your sword. Practice your fist with me." Liu could not stop talking. Chuli did not say anything. If you can't practice your inner energy, just practice a fist technique to strengthen your body. Why practice your sword? Shut up, Chuli spat out. His forehead was covered in a layer of sweat. In this world, martial arts were flourishing. The practice of martial arts began at a young age. From the age of 8 to 18, one would take advantage of the puberty to practice the foundation heart technique to strengthen their meridians. Otherwise, they would not be able to withstand the impact of inner energy, and their lives would be in danger. From the age of 8 to 18, once the meridians were fixed, even the most miraculous heart technique would only yield half the result. It would take many times longer to build the foundation. Before the age of 18, he studied the scripture of the wisdom origin in the Temple of Autumn, where he grew up. His spirit was twice that of an ordinary person, and his spirit was strong. In addition, he was a high-energy physics researcher in his past life. His understanding of the world was far beyond that of an ordinary person. With the combination of both, he finally mastered the scripture of the wisdom origin and the omniscient mirror. His spirit was strong, and his cultivation time was much longer than that of an ordinary person. With the divine power, he could use his clairvoyance. Hence, his progress in the minute pulse cleansing technique was very fast. He could build the foundation in 5 years. Hee, with that sword of yours, you can't even kill a chicken. What's the point of training? Chuli suddenly sheathed his sword and scoffed. Want to compete? Chapter 2. Liu laughed heartily. his fists becoming even more ferocious. You can't defeat me. Ha! Ha! Liu laughed even louder. What are you laughing at? Chu Li said snappily. You don't dare to compete? Liu retracted his stance. His face was neither red nor angry, and his smile did not diminish. Do you really want to compete? Nonsense. He don't hurt you. I can beat a rank 9 protector. Young? Gather? Young Jun. All right, let's compete then. Chu Li placed the emerald-tipped sword on the stone table and picked up the scabbard. Don't hurt yourself. All right, all right. Liu gritted his teeth. Chu Li picked up the scabbard. Come, watch my fist. Liu was afraid that Chu Li would say something even worse if he did not make a move, so he immediately attacked with a black tiger steel's heart. He was full of confidence. Those with inner force and ordinary people were like adults and children. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror, and the scene before him changed. In Liu's eyes, Liu had turned into a skeleton. With a single thought, the skeleton was covered with muscles, white meridians, and green inner energy. Scenes appeared in Liu's mind. Chu Li being punched in the chest, Chu Li falling to the ground, and admitting defeat with an ugly expression on his face. Everything about Liu, the minute movements of his muscles, the flow of his inner energy, and the changes in his thoughts, was clearly displayed in front of Chu Li's eyes. His scabbard flicked and tapped at Liu's body, coincidentally at the moment when Liu's muscles were moving the slowest. It looked like Liu was waiting obediently without any resistance. Liu screamed as he rubbed his arm. Chu Li smiled. Again, eat my fist, Liu shouted. Chu Li gently twisted his wrist and thrust it forward. Liu seemed to have obediently moved his fist forward. He let out another blood-curdling scream as half of his body went numb. Chu Li's scabbard stopped in front of his neck. Brother Li, you're dead. Liu's eyes widened. What kind of sword technique is this? Delusion splitter again. Again. I haven't even used my ultimate move yet. Liu snorted, his face red. He felt as if he had delivered himself to Chu Li's doorstep. Chu Li knew his moves and broke them in advance. This time, he had never used this move before. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. Come on. Liu roared. His voice was like a thunderclap as he took the opportunity to throw his fist forward. Chu Li lazily thrust his sword forward. Once again, Liu screamed in pain and staggered backward. Chu Li took a step forward and placed the scabbard on his throat again. You died again. Strange, this is really strange. Liu rubbed his wrist and stared at Chu Li in confusion. I don't think you've seen this fist technique of mine before. Chu Li sheathed his sword. Any fist technique is the same. Is the delusion split really that powerful? Liu asked in disbelief. Is it really that powerful without inner energy? Chu Li nodded. You could try. He had practiced swordsmanship before, but it was nothing compared to this swordsmanship. There was no way he would be able to defeat Zhuo Feiyang. The delusion split had a hint of the 9 strategies beyond the swords. Combined with his omniscient mirror, he was able to unleash a formidable power. It seemed that he could now fight Zhuo Feiyang. Forget it, I don't have the talent for swordsmanship. Liu quickly waved his hand. Your swordsmanship will definitely allow you to pass the ranking tower. Chu Li scoffed. What about hidden weapons? Liu suddenly understood. He chuckled and felt much better. Too bad you haven't built your foundation, or else you'd be another Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang was now a rank 8 protector. He was a genius with a bright future ahead of him. Zhuo Feiyang. Chu Li smirked. Liu leaned over and whispered, Brother, what's the grudge between you and Zhuo Feiyang? Chu Li scoffed. Liu asked curiously, Aren't you from the same school? You must have a good relationship. Don't mention him, it spoils the mood. Chu Li waved his hand and sheathed his emerald-tipped sword. Now that Zhuo Feiyang was famous, he was still a nameless servant. The difference between their statuses was like heaven and earth. Could Zhao Ying withstand Zhuo Feiyang's relentless pursuit? He could not help but feel a sense of urgency. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief and returned to the West Wing. He laid on his bed and stared blankly at the well. The omniscient mirror was known as the omniscient mirror. The omniscient mirror was a combination of heaven's eye and Chu Li's eye of insight. The omniscient mirror could see everything in the world, including the inside and outside of the human body, bones, muscles, blood, meridians, vital energy, inner energy, and even the images in one's mind. After mastering the scripture of wisdom's origin, one would have a photographic memory and a mind that was far beyond that of the average person. Hence, he was full of ambition. He wanted to enjoy the riches and glory of this world. He wanted to wield supreme power and have many beauties. He shook his head as he thought about it. His master used his connections to send him into the public house. It was only after he entered that he realized that he had not built his foundation and was lagging behind others. He would need to work hard to catch up. Once he entered the public house, the atmosphere in the public house was not one of harmony. When he first entered the public house, he was taught the public house's rules along with the other newcomers. He was not allowed to practice martial arts and was looked down upon, mocked, and humiliated. He had a nemesis, Zhuo Feiyang, a genius in martial arts. Zhuo Feiyang had already passed the rank 9 tower and was now a rank 8 scribe. Zhuo Feiyang always went against him. If it were not for his 2 lives and the omniscient mirror, he would have broken down a long time ago. Now that he had mastered the delusion split, he did not have to hold back anymore. Early the next morning, he practiced the delusion split twice and sailed across the lake to the island where the library was. There was only one tall bronze building on the island. The library shone brightly. A person standing at the bottom of the building was as small as an ant. There were 2 bronze cauldrons at the entrance. They were 3 stories tall. There was an armchair placed on the bluestone steps. A silver-haired old woman sat in the armchair. She was thin and short. She was happily reading a book. Her silver hair was tied up neatly. "Grandma's son." Chu Li stepped forward and bowed. Grandma's son stared at the book and waved her hand. Chu Li bowed again and quietly entered the building. As soon as he stepped in, he felt a sense of disorientation. It was as if he had returned to the library in his original world. The rows of bookshelves were filled with the fragrance of ink. He was reading the calligraphy like a bulldozer. He read shelf by shelf. He had already finished the first floor and half of the second floor. He was the only one in the building. Most of the people went to the martial arts hall. That place was specialized in martial arts. Very few people came to the library. Ever since Chu Li came to the library, he had only seen Grandma Sunday. He had never met anyone else. He felt pity and joy. It was obvious that they did not value the miscellaneous books in the library. They did not understand that knowledge was power. Turning it into wisdom was a powerful force that was not inferior to martial arts. He suddenly stopped and took a deep breath to suppress his joy. He confirmed again that this page really had a picture of the tree of life and death. Could it be that his luck had come? The picture of the tree of life and death that he had no hope of had really appeared. This was no different from the probability of winning the lottery. The Temple of Autumn had 2 treasured books. One was the scripture of the wisdom of life, and the other was the scripture of life and death. He had mastered the scripture of the wisdom of life and death, but the scripture of life and death lacked the picture of the tree of life and death. The tree of life and death was a legendary thing. It existed above the 33 heavens. It was not stained or damaged. It was permanent in the world. How could something from the 33 heavens appear in the human world? Chu Li did not care much about it. He had a habit from his previous life. He was curious. He understood the scripture of life and death. After all, it was said that the person who mastered it could live forever. He actually saw the picture of the tree of life and death. Was his luck going to change? He closed his eyes, and his mind was blank. There was an immeasurable force blocking his memory of the tree of life and death. Interesting. It seemed like it was a real picture. He appeared at the doorstep. "Grandma's son, this picture is quite interesting. I want to copy it." Tree of life and death. Grandma's son glanced at it and went into the building. "Wait." She went into the building and quickly came out. She handed him a scroll. "This is Li Yuming's original work. It's for you." Chu Li opened it and took a step back. It was also a picture of the tree of life and death. The towering giant tree seemed to jump out of the painting. It was so huge that he had the urge to kneel. Grandma's son looked at him with a smile. Interesting. Chuli was the first person who did not kneel when he opened the picture. She laughed to herself. This little Chuli was indeed not an ordinary person. Thank you, Grandma-san. Chuli rolled up the scroll and closed fist saluted. Sigh. Grandma-san shook her head. There are fewer and fewer young people who study. They are all impetuous and have limited prospects. It's rare that you like books. Chuli said goodbye and left. He drove the boat back to the East Garden. The boat sailed on the lake. The bottom of the lake was made of blue sand. The water was exceptionally clear. The fishes were leisurely and the lotuses swayed with the wind. Chuli smiled at the breeze. He had new hope. Everything became better. He hoped that the scripture of life and death could make up for his foundation and allow him to officially cultivate inner energy. He hung the scroll at the head of the bed. He sat in a lotus position and looked at it. He closed his eyes, opened them for a while, and closed them again. He did this repeatedly, trying to visualize. After a long while, he did not get anything. He gritted his teeth and activated the omniscient mirror to observe the tree of life and death. Boom! A muffled sound was heard. It was as if thunder had exploded in the sky. His body shook as if he was struck by lightning. He could not move at all. His ears were ringing nonstop. Everything in front of him was shaking. A fierce force penetrated into his body, trying to tear him apart. Everything suddenly stopped. It seemed like a moment, but it also seemed like a long time. His 5 senses returned to normal. The pain disappeared. Only a sense of freedom and comfort. He got up and went to the center of the courtyard. He looked up at the sky and smiled. The invisible shell outside his body was broken. His restricted 5 senses were released. He was free and spread out infinitely. He blended in with his surroundings. He was a tree, a gust of wind, a rock, a piece of earth. He touched a plum tree. Suddenly, he felt a connection with it. His senses were connected. It was as if he had become a plum tree. The warmth of the earth, the brightness of the sun, and the freshness of the air were all turned into strength by the plum tree and nourished him. The breath of the plum tree surged into his body. He subconsciously used the minute pulse cleansing technique. In a blink of an eye, his efficiency was much higher than before. Using the breath of the plum tree to cultivate, it would only take 4 years. He let go of the plum tree and tried other trees. Willow, pine, birch. After that, he tried all kinds of flowers and finally chose the mulberry flower. The mulberry flower was similar to a chrysanthemum. It was delicate and slender, but its breath was pure and clear. It was better than all kinds of trees. He could cultivate the minute pulse cleansing technique in 3 years. He wanted to laugh out loud. The scripture of life and death was indeed powerful. The mulberry flower was originally a rank 9 spirit medicine. Because of its beauty, the third lady, Shao-Chi, liked it, so she planted some in the East Garden. The Her Garden was divided into 9 ranks. The Her Garden scribes were of a higher rank than the garden scribes. They had to be at least rank 8 and were proficient in flowers and plants. Only then were they qualified to enter the rank 9 Her Garden. The most important thing now was to advance. Once he advanced, he would be able to come into contact with higher rank spirit herbs. He would be able to cultivate the minute pulse cleansing technique faster and build his foundation earlier. He must snatch Zhao Ying over. Brother, bad news. Liu rushed over and interrupted his daydream. What is it? Chuli asked casually. He was still immersed in the wonderful feeling and the vision of the future. The snow orchid is sick. Let's take a look. Liu grabbed him and ran. When Chuli heard that the snow orchid was sick, he rushed to the snow orchid garden. The snow orchid looked like a normal orchid. Its leaves were crystal clear like snow. It was a miracle created by nature. There were 120 snow orchids in the snow orchid garden. Entering, it was like stepping into a flawless world. His soul became clear. It was a great enjoyment. At that moment, there were 1 or 2 black spots on the leaves of the 50 snow orchids. He moved closer and sniffed. The stench was pungent. He frowned. It's not rust. Then what disease is it? Liu said anxiously. We're done for. The snow orchid was sold for 10 taels per plant. If it died, the public house would fine the owner 15 taels. If all 50 of them died, it would not only be a monetary penalty, but also a demotion in rank. The owner would be transferred out of the East Garden. The East Garden was the garden of the Third Lady, Shao Qi. Being recognized by the Third Lady would bring him endless benefits. Chu Li reached out and connected his senses with the snow orchid. Nothing could hide. He furrowed his brows and searched his memory palace. After a while, he found something. It's the Dew Eater. Dew Eater? Li Yu's eyes widened in confusion. Chu Li said, "Brother Li, can you take the intestine-rupturing grass and the soul-stripping grass? They're all highly toxic. I'm rank 9. I can only take 10. Then take 10 each and mix their juices." "All right." Li Yu rushed out. Chu Li sat in the snow orchid nursery and touched a snow orchid with each of his hands. He transferred the breath of the healthy snow orchid into the snow orchid with black spots. The dew-eater worm was shaped like a strand of hair and was as long as a fingernail. It liked to eat dew, and its saliva was poisonous, devouring vitality. The snow orchids with black spots suffered great damage to their vitality. They were listless and drooping, and some of them were even on the verge of death. If not for the life and death scripture, a few of them would have died very quickly. When Li Yu ran back with the 2 boxes, the 5 snow orchids that were the sickest had recovered. Chu Li heaved a sigh of relief. They had escaped death. Chu Li took a thin grass stick and poured some grass juice on it. He carefully smeared it on his skin, fighting poison with poison. It could restore the black spots to their original whiteness, but it could also darken the non-black spots. Li Yu did not dare to touch it. His hands and feet were clumsy, and he could not be as precise as Chu Li. "Brother, why don't I invite Old Meng over to take a look?" Li Yu whispered. Chu Li waved his left hand. Li Yu scratched his head sheepishly. This was because he did not trust Chu Li, but this matter was of utmost importance. Chu Li did not mind. Li Yu did not know about his divine powers, and Li Yu was a coward. Hey! Chapter 3. After a while, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Li Yu was following behind a plump, chubby old man. He had a flattering smile on his face. Meng Qinlin, high official of the Her Garden, rank 6 scribe. His chubby face had small eyes. When he saw the black spots, his eyes widened and he shouted, "Stop!" Chu Li put down the grass stick and closed fist saluted. "Sir Meng." "Young Chu, what are you doing?" Meng Qinlin rushed over and glared at him. He went to one of the black spots, looked at it, smelled it, and then crouched on the ground to smell it. Then he put a handful of soil in his mouth and tasted it. "It's not rust." Meng Qinlin frowned and spat out the soil. Li Yu tactfully offered him a cup of tea, smiling apologetically. Meng Qinlin pursed his lips and frowned. Rust was a common disease of snow orchids. There were many variations, and these black spots looked like rust, but it was very deceptive. Meng Qinlin stared at Chu Li. "Young Chu, don't tell me you used rust to treat it." Chu Li said, "It's the Dew Eater." "Dew Eater?" Meng Qinlin blinked. He had some impression of it. "Are you sure?" 60%. "You little brat. How dare you?" Meng Qinlin passed him the tea and said, "If it really dies, your life is over." Chu Li smiled and stepped forward to take the teacup. Meng Qinlin saw his confidence and said, "How many days do you need?" "For days is enough." "All right, we'll wait and see. If it really dies, don't even think about staying here anymore." Meng Qinlin turned and left. Li Yu smiled and followed behind. Chu Li closed fist saluted and put down the teacup to continue applying the juice. Chu Li stayed in the snow orchid garden day and night. If there was a serious illness, he would shift his aura to it. Li Yu, who was serving food and drinks, noticed something strange. The listless snow orchid that was not in a good state would be full of life after Chu Li touched it, as if it had taken the energy pill. He asked Chu Li curiously. Chu Li said that it was a natural ability and asked him to keep his mouth shut. Li Yu excitedly patted his chest and promised. Although the East Garden was free and unfettered, it also had a heavy responsibility. If anything went wrong, it would be severely punished. Therefore, when he saw that the flowers were sick, he felt anxious and worried. He couldn't eat or sleep well. Now that Chu Li had this ability, he could finally have a good night's sleep. 3 days later, the black spots disappeared, and the snow orchid returned to its crystal-clear state. There was no trace of illness on it. Liu invited Meng Qinlin over. Meng Qinlin had investigated the Dew-Eaters and saw that Chu Li had succeeded. He praised Meng Qinlin and said that he would fight for Chu Li's promotion. Other than gaining experience, there was another way for imperial bodyguards to be promoted, by making meritorious service. If they made a great contribution, they could be promoted. This time, the High Duke's public house had suffered from a lot of Shuilon. If they could use Chu Li's method to cure them, it would be a great merit, barely enough for them to be promoted. Chu Li was just about to take a nap when the sound of a jade chime was heard. Someone had entered the island. Chu Li and Liu rushed to the shore to take a look. Meng Qinlin got off the boat with a smile on his face. Chu Li and Liu greeted him. Good, good. Meng Qinlin patted Chu Li's shoulder and said warmly, Young Chu, thanks to you, the East Garden has gained a lot of face. The Herb Garden was in charge of all the flowers and herbs in the public house. The East Garden belonged to Lady Xiao Qi, while the West Garden belonged to Master Xiao Taiying. The two factions fought fiercely in the Herb Garden, and Meng Qinlin belonged to the East Garden. All cured. Chu Li smiled. Meng Qinlin laughed. A total of 300 snow orchids. Liu quickly asked, Sir Meng, will Brother Chu be promoted? From today onwards, young Chu Li is a rank 9 scribe. Young Li, you two are rank 8. Meng Qinlin smiled and took out 2 banknotes. 10,000 taels is young Chu Li's, and 1,000 taels is young Li's. This money is a reward from the Herb Garden. Chu Li took the banknotes and closed fist saluted. Thank you, Sir Meng. Meng Qinlin must have put in a lot of effort to get such a generous reward. Not bad, young Chu Li. You have a bright future ahead of Gulitong. Meng Qinlin was overjoyed. Liu asked in surprise, Did Gulitong not find a cure this time? He's a genius. Gulitong had been in the public house for 3 years and was a rank 8 scribe. He had made 2 great contributions to the public house and introduced 2 varieties of rare flowers. He had a bright future ahead of him. Meng Qinlin waved his fat hand. He's not in the mood for this. Chu Li said, Sir Meng, I have a small request. Speak. I want to visit the Herb Garden. Oh, you're quite ambitious. You want to enter the Herb Garden? I've heard of it for a long time. I'm curious. Meng Qinlin thought for a while and smiled. All right. You can only enter the rank 9 Herb Garden. Thank you, Sir Meng. The Herb Garden isn't as beautiful as you think. Let's go. Meng Qinlin brought the 2 of them onto the boat. He stood at the bow and commanded while Liu rowed the boat. After half an hour, they arrived at a small island. 4 middle-aged protectors stepped forward, their eyes as sharp as arrows. Meng Qinlin showed them his waist tag. The protectors nodded and let them pass. Liu covered his nose with his hand. He looked like he was about to vomit. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. The smell on the island was really strong. With so many different smells mixed together, it was hard to smell good or bad. It was a torture to the nose. Meng Qinlin smiled at Liu. Young Li, if you stay in the Herb Garden for too long, you'll have the same smell on your body. No matter how much you wash it, you'll never get rid of it. What do you think? It smells good, right? Ha! Liu said with a bitter face. Then how can we go to the New Moon brothel? Which girl can stand this smell? Meng Qinlin laughed. Do you think the generous reward is for nothing? The 3 of them arrived at a small courtyard. Chu Li's omniscient mirror could see everything within a mile radius. He saw many small courtyards connected to each other. Each courtyard was a herb garden with a type of spirit medicine. This courtyard had a patch of green foxtail grass. Chu Li recognized it as the floating grass. It was considered one of the best rank 9 spirit medicine. A skinny middle-aged man was bending over to remove the grass. He was careful not to touch the floating grass. The hoe was made of jasper, small and delicate. Sir Meng. He heard footsteps and turned around, fist saluting. Meng Qinlin waved his hand. Young Jing, go about your business. I'll show them around. Are they new here? Jing Zhihai asked with a smile. Meng Qinlin said, they made a contribution and were promoted. As a reward, I'll show them around the herb garden. Jing Zhihai's expression changed. He fist saluted solemnly. My apologies, my apologies. Please help yourselves. It was not easy to be promoted. People like them had a bright future ahead of them. If there was a good job or a good position, their first choice would be a scribe with a high rank. Sir Jing, can I touch them? Of course. Just be careful. They are quite delicate. Chu Li nodded and thanked him. He carefully touched a floating grass. The pure energy flowed into his body and circulated the minute pulse cleansing technique. Using it to cultivate the minute pulse cleansing technique would take 2 years. This was a rank 9 spirit medicine. If it was a rank 1 spirit medicine, how fast would it be? The combination of the spirit medicine's essence and the minute pulse cleansing technique was comparable to the metamorphosis fruit. The metamorphosis fruit could cleanse one's body and complete one's foundation. It even had great benefits. Unfortunately, it was a legendary item. The essence of a spirit medicine was similar to the essence of a human's 5 grains. Once it died, the essence would dissipate. The medicinal effects of a spirit medicine and its essence were 2 different things. Inner energy was used to convert the essence of the 5 grains into inner energy. The essence of the 5 grains was limited, but the essence of the plants was unlimited. If he could use it to replace the essence, his cultivation would progress by leaps and bounds. Thinking of this, he was filled with hope. Young man, what are you thinking of? Meng Qinlin interrupted his thoughts. Chu Li let go of his hand and smiled. Let's go somewhere else. Young Jing, you can continue with your work. Meng Qinlin waved his hand. Jing Zhihai escorted them to the door. The 3 of them visited the 5 courtyards. Chu Li touched each one of them. The floating grass was the purest. He had to hurry up and advance his rank so that he could cultivate here. The 3 of them returned. Liu rowed the boat. Meng Qinlin smiled at Chu Li. Young Chu, do you want to come in? Chu Li nodded. Liu quickly asked, Brother, you don't want to stay in the East Garden? I'll go both ways. Young Chu, you're too inexperienced. You'll have to wait for a few years. Sir Meng, there must be a way. There is a way. Contribution. I hope Sir Meng can guide me. You know that Gu Lidhong is researching the moonlight orchid, right? Meng Qinlin smiled. If you manage to grow the moonlight orchid before him, I'll guarantee that you'll enter the rank 9 herb garden. The moonlight orchid, Chu Li frowned. Its leaves were curved and emitted a white light at night, like a crescent moon. That was why it was called the moonlight orchid. It was born on the Moonlight Island. Once it left the island, it would only live for a month. There were no exceptions to this rule. However, because of its beauty, it was highly sought after. One moonlight orchid was worth at least 200 taels of silver. 200 taels of silver was enough to buy a small house in Chongming Town. Chu Li was a rank 9 scribe. 10 taels of silver a month was already a high salary. He could not even afford a single moonlight orchid, even after working for a year. It was such an expensive moonlight orchid. Many masters were researching it to extend its lifespan. Unfortunately, no one had succeeded. Gu Lidong was too proud to challenge it. You don't dare? Meng Qinlin smiled at him. Liu kept signaling Chu Li with his eyes. Chu Li nodded. All right, I'll give it a try. After sending Meng Qinlin back, the 2 returned to the East Garden. Liu complained to Chu Li as he rowed the boat. Brother, you really dare to say it. It's a moonlight orchid. Chu Li laughed against the wind. Why not give it a try? If Gu Lidong knew about this, he'd definitely have a different opinion. Chu Li smiled. Sigh, you've got guts. Liu shook his head helplessly. He admired Chu Li's carefreeness. It was as if he had nothing to worry about and could let go of everything. However, this personality of his could easily offend people and cause trouble. Chu Li saw his worry and smiled. He wouldn't dare to barge into the East Garden, would he? Not really, but he's not a forgiving person. He'll do whatever it takes. He'll definitely cause you trouble. Then keep your mouth shut and do it quietly. Of course, I have no problem with that. Liu shouted. Chu Li shook his head in disapproval. Liu was a man with no subtlety at all. Chapter 4. Chu Li and Liu stepped into the floral pavilion. Across the street from the floral pavilion was the main street of Chongming Town. It was bustling with people and carriages, but the floral pavilion was quiet and cold. It was like 2 different worlds. The entrance of the floral pavilion was old and dilapidated. The surrounding antique shops and jewelry shops were all similar in style, as if they were about to close down. Chuli would not underestimate this place. It was a place that did not open for business for 3 years, but once it did, it would eat for 3 years. Lifting the curtains, their eyes widened. The spacious hall was fragrant, and pots of rare plants were placed on the shelves. In the middle of the hall was an old man with white eyebrows and beard, leisurely drinking tea. When he saw the two enter, he stood up with a smile and closed fist saluted. "Young brothers, feel free to look around." Chu Li and Li Yu's eyes were immediately attracted by the moonlight orchid. Its green leaves were curved, glowing with a warm luster. It was so beautiful that it did not seem alive. The old man came over and laughed. "Young brothers, do you like the moonlight orchid?" Li Yu scoffed. "Of course, who doesn't? Shopkeeper, how long does this moonlight orchid last?" "It just arrived not long ago." The old man raised 2 fingers. "At least 2 months. 10 days. Chuli smiled. Li Yu patted his waist and scoffed. "Shopkeeper, open your eyes wide. Are you a man from the public house?" The old man's expression changed. He closed fists, saluted, and smiled. My apologies. I dare not lie to you. It is indeed 10 days, but this is the only one that came out of the island this year. The next one will be next year. I have to take care of my parents and children, and I have to support my family. I can't sell it at such a low price." Li Yu waved his hand. "Stop acting pitiful. We don't buy it." Everyone who could open a shop here was not poor. They were all wealthy. Chuli touched the moonlight orchid casually. "Give me a price." The essence of the moonlight orchid flowed into his body, and he circulated the minute pulse cleansing technique once. He spat out a mouthful of air, suppressing his ecstasy. Extremely pure, spiritual energy. 1 year. He only needed 1 year to build his foundation. Just as the old man opened his mouth to speak, the sound of footsteps rang out. A young man entered the room, lifted the curtain with both hands, and bowed respectfully. A voice came from outside the door. "Sister Zhao, please. Senior Brother Zhua. After you." A handsome young man strode into the house. He had a jade-like face, sharp eyebrows, and bright eyes. A long sword hung from his waist. He was in high spirits, looking around proudly. It was Zhua Feiyang. 2 beautiful girls followed behind him. One was delicate and pretty, and the other had skin as white as snow. It was Zhaoying. Chuli and Zhua Feiyang's eyes met, and both of them frowned. Chuli looked at Zhaoying. He activated the omniscient mirror and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Zhaoying was not tempted and had purposely brought along another female companion. Zhua Feiyang scoffed. "Why are you here?" Chuli laughed coldly. "Interesting. Why can't I be here?" Zhua Feiyang scoffed. "A lowly servant who can't even afford to buy a single blade of grass. What a pity. Young Master Zhua is a busybody." Li Yu had a bad feeling about this. This was the genius Zhua Feiyang. If the two of them really clashed, things would not end well for them. Brother Zhua. Miss Zhao. I am Li Yu from the East Garden." Zhua Feiyang glared at him coldly and did not say anything. Zhao Ying, who was dressed in a light green gown, smiled and returned the greeting. "Brotherly." Zhua Feiyang looked down at him from above. "Chuli, get out of the way. A good dog doesn't block the way." Zhua Feiyang, do you really believe that people call you a genius? Of course I'm a genius. Zhua Feiyang puffed out his chest. So what if you're smart? You still haven't built your foundation yet. Sigh. No matter how good your martial arts is, if you don't have a brain, you're still an idiot. Chu Li shook his head. Zhua Feiyang gritted his teeth and looked at him with disdain. In this world, martial arts is everything. Chu Li, I'm rank 8 now, and I'll reach rank 7 this year. What about you? You're just a lowly servant. If you want to reach rank 8, you'll have to work hard for 20 years, and you can't even make a mistake. Do you really think you won't get into trouble with your stupid character? With your brain, no matter how good your martial arts are, you'll only be able to guard the house. You won't be of much use. Zhua Feiyang scoffed. Even if I won't be of much use, I'll still be more useful than you. Brother Zhua, Brother Chu. Zhao Ying stomped her feet. Zhua Feiyang's expression changed immediately. He smiled gently and said, Zhao Ying, What do you think of this moonlight orchid? It's beautiful, but it's too expensive. Zhao Ling shook her head and looked away from the moonlight orchid. Zhou Feiyong looked at the moonlight orchid and smiled. Zhao, let's go somewhere else. It's too unlucky to be with him. Let's go. Brother Chu. Zhao smiled apologetically. She knew that it was not appropriate for the two of them to be together. Chu Li waved his hand to indicate that it was fine. He looked at them with a gloomy expression as they left. Phew! Li let out a long sigh. He looked at Chu Li helplessly. Brother, Zhou Feiyong was a genius. He would definitely become a big shot in the future. It was best not to provoke him. Chu Li waved his hand. Shopkeeper, give me a price. The old man laughed. Thank you. 200 taels. What an unscrupulous businessman. Liu shook his head and took out some banknotes. Wait. The curtain was lifted and a young man walked in. It was the scribe who stood behind Zhou Feiyong. He was slim and handsome. Bai Jijia was a rank 9 scribe. He smiled at everyone he met. However, he stood in front of the old man with a cold expression. I bid 300 taels. Li Yu's eyes widened. Shall I? This guy usually smiled at him and called him brotherly. But now his expression had changed. It was as if he was a completely different person. Shopkeeper, what do you think? Bai Jijia did not even look at Li Yu. He stared at the old man coldly. The old man hesitated. He looked at Chu Li and then at Bai Jijia. The men of the House of High Duke were not to be trifled with. But with such a huge profit in front of him, he could not help but be tempted. He turned his head and smiled apologetically at Chu Li. Chu Li said, 500 taels, 600 taels, 700 taels, 800 taels, 1,000 taels, 1,000 taels. Bai Jijia stared at Chu Li coldly. Brother Chu, I advise you to reconsider. Do you want to go against Master Zhua? Chu Li stared at Bai Jijia and suddenly smiled. 10,000 taels. Bai Jijia stared at Chu Li. Brother Chu, are you going to go down this path until the end? Chu Li smiled. Bai Jijia hesitated for a while and finally stomped his foot. 11,000 taels. Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and smiled. I'm impressed. You win. He turned around and left. Li Yu glared at Bai Jijia and quickly followed him. Central Street. Surrounded by a lively crowd, Chu Li's chest was filled with anger. He did not feel the joy of tricking Zhou Feiyong. There would only be a second moonlight orchid in a year. In a year, Gu Lidhong would be able to successfully cultivate it. Zhou Feiyong would become a rank 7 protector. Chu Li himself would have no hope of advancing or building his foundation. Li Yu looked at his gloomy face and helplessly said, Brother, don't think too much about it. Zhou Feiyong is rich. You really can't win against him. Chu Li frowned and did not say anything. He no longer had the mood to play and went straight back to the public house. The next morning, Chu Li was cultivating in the mulberry parterre when Li Yu ran over. Brother, bad news. Bad news. Chu Li frowned and looked at him. Li Yu ran over and shouted, Zhou Feiyong is too much. Spit it out. Chu Li said impatiently. Li Yu said angrily, Zhou Feiyong wants to change his scribe. Chu Li's face darkened. Me? Li Yu nodded and punched the ground. That's too much. Chu Li's face darkened. His anger was boiling. Although there was a difference in salary between a scribe and a protector, their status was similar. A rank 8 protector could be paired with a rank 9 scribe. Similarly, a rank 8 scribe could be paired with a rank 9 protector. Zhou Feiyong wanted Chu Li from the herb house. The herb house would not offend this genius for Chu Li's sake. Moreover, being an imperial bodyguard was also a good job. Imperial bodyguards spent 10 months out of the year on missions. Imperial bodyguards did not have any other errands in a mansion, so they could live leisurely and carefree. Imperial bodyguards who went on missions had generous bonuses and extra income. Just a little bit of money was enough for Imperial bodyguards to eat and drink well. If Chu Li rejected it, others would think that he did not know what was good for him. Zhou Feiyong had improved a lot. This move was ruthless and despicable. What should we do? Li Yu asked anxiously. Without Chu Li, he would not be able to sleep well. The flowers and plants in the East Garden were too delicate. They could easily cause problems. Chu Li scoffed. I'll have to use my last resort. Tell me, Liu asked. Chu Li said, I'll write a challenge. Brother Li, please help me deliver it. You want a challenge, Zhuo Feiyang? Liu hesitated. Brother, isn't it too risky? Chu Li's swordsmanship was strong, but Zhuo Feiyang was not himself. He might not be able to win. Chu Li smiled. I'll give it a try. Sigh, you got guts. Liu shook his head helplessly. Chu Li did not care about anything. Chu Li returned to the courtyard and wrote 2 invitations. One for Zhuo Feiyang and the other for Zhao Ying. Liu was confused. Why did you invite Miss Zhao? If I don't invite Sister Zhao, Zhuo Feiyang will go back on his word. Really? This guy is not as righteous as you think. He's very despicable. Chapter 5. On the misty lake, a small boat was sailing towards the east garden. There were 3 people on the small boat. Bai Jijia was at the helm, while Zhuo Feiyang and Zhao Ying stood at the bow of the boat. Zhao Ying, who was dressed in a light green gown, asked softly, Brother Zhuo, why did you and Brother Chu become enemies? Zhuo Feiyang furrowed his brows and thought for a moment. I didn't like him the first time I saw him. He's not that capable, but he's acting all high and mighty. I hated him the moment I saw him, and I wanted to slap him to death. It's not like you have a blood feud with each other. Why are you doing this? Zhao Ying shook her head and smiled. Both of them were very arrogant. Senior Brother Zhuo had the right to be arrogant, but Senior Brother Chu could not practice martial arts. Yet he seemed to have something up his sleeves. He looked down on Senior Brother Zhuo, and this was what Senior Brother Zhuo could not tolerate. Issuing a challenge wasn't a joke. The House of High Dukes forbade private fights. If there were any injuries or deaths, the lightest punishment would be the abolition of martial arts and expulsion from the public house. The most severe punishment would be death. Challenges were allowed, but the other party had the right to refuse. If the other party agreed to it, as long as they were not killed or crippled, the matter would not be pursued. The public house would not care even if Brother Chu initiated the challenge and was injured by Brother Zhuo. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. I just can't stand seeing his arrogance. Zhao Ying shook her head and laughed. Prideful people could not bear to see others being prideful. Senior Brother Zhuo, are you really going to do this? Of course. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. He's courting death. I'm the kind of person who likes to help others achieve their goals. I'll turn him into a complete piece of trash. Zhao Ying furrowed her brows. If they didn't get along, Chu Li would be ruthless. This was too much. Senior Chu, why do you dare to challenge me? He must be so angry that he lost his mind. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed proudly. This arrogant bastard will never be able to handle being my scribe. Sigh. Zhao Ying shook her head. Brother Zhuo, you don't actually have a grudge against each other. Why do you have to do this? Junior Sister Zhao, you don't understand. Zhuo Feiyang cut her off with a wave of his hand. Be ruthless when you need to be. This bastard. Kill him when you get the chance. We were classmates. Zhao Ying sighed. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Sister Zhao, don't be soft-hearted. Sigh. Zhao Ying sighed helplessly and decided to stop him at the critical moment. She secretly blamed Chu Li. The situation was out of his control, so he had to lower his head when he needed to. It would have been fine if he had admitted defeat. Why do you have to fight with Senior Zhuo? Bai Jijia said, Young master, Miss Zhao, we are here. The 3 of them saw a small island floating on the lake. It seemed to be floating with the wind. The island was surrounded by willow trees. Their branches drooped down to the surface of the lake, swaying in the wind like mist. Zhuo Feiyang said, Jijia, wait on the boat. Child, be careful. Bai Jijia said, This is their territory after all. I want to see what kind of tricks he has up his sleeves. Zhuo Feiyang waved his hand dismissively. All tricks are useless in the face of powerful martial arts. Yes. Bai Jijia nodded respectfully. The boat slowly approached the shore. There was a jade chime hanging under the willow tree, along with a drum. Zhao Ying hit the jade chime, and the clear sound echoed throughout the east garden. Chu Li and Li Yu appeared. Chu Li had a sword hanging from his waist. Chu Li stood on a high vantage point and nodded. Zhuo Feiyang, at least you have some guts. Sister Zhao, welcome. Zhuo Feiyang's handsome face darkened. He was annoyed to be looked down upon by Chu Li. He laughed coldly. You're just a piece of trash. What's there to be afraid of? Chu turned his head and said, Sister Zhao, come in and have a cup of tea. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. What tea? Who knows if you've poisoned it? Didn't you want to challenge me? Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and fight. There's no rush. Cut the crap. Zhuo Feiyang shouted. Chu, if you want to fight, hurry up and do it. If you don't, then admit defeat and be my scribe. You're so impulsive. Chu shook his head. You won't amount to anything. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to say that? Zhuo Feiyang sneered. Chu said, if you want to fight, sure, but there needs to be some stakes. Zhuo Feiyang, if I win, you will be my protector. In your dreams. Zhuo Feiyang laughed. I say, Chu, are you awake? You want me to be your protector? Why do you think you'll lose? Of course not. Then why don't you agree? Are you not confident enough? What do you mean I wouldn't dare? And the Moonlight Orchid, return it to me if you lose. You sure have a big appetite. Zhuo Feiyang sneered and gritted his teeth. That's 11,000 taels we're talking about. At the thought of this, anger rushed to his head. 11,000 taels was cheated just like that. Zhaoing smiled and said, Brother Chu, if you win, the Moonlight Orchid is yours. Chu gave a fist salute and smiled. Thank you, junior sister Zhao. This was not the time to be polite. The Moonlight Orchid was too important. It could change one's fate. Zhao Ying said, Brother Chu, I thought you couldn't practice martial arts. Chu shook his head. I can't cultivate the heart technique of inner energy, but I can still cultivate the swordsmanship. Zhao Ying looked at him responsibly. Then why are you acting tough? Chu cast a sidelong glance at Zhuo Feiyang. There's no need for inner energy to deal with an idiot like him. You with the surname Chu, you sure talk big. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Without inner force, what are you going to use to fight? Chu said, I've cultivated the delusion split. It's more than enough to deal with you. Delusion splitting sword art? Huh. Zhuo Feiyang laughed out loud. You're just a piece of trash. Even if you have a precious sword that can cut through iron like it's mud, what can you do? Zhaoing thought that although Zhuo Feiyang's words were harsh, he was right. Without inner force, one could not unleash the power of the swordsmanship. Chu scoffed. Zhuo Feiyang, do you agree or not? What if you lose? Zhuo Feiyang's smile faded. You can't keep all the benefits to yourself, right? Chu patted his chest. The 10,000 taels of silver is yours. I'll leave the public house. I have the silver. 10,000 taels is nothing. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. As long as you get out of the public house and stay out of my sight, then it's settled. Junior sister Zhao will be the witness. Zhao Ying frowned. Brother Chu, why did you guys have to go this far? I had no choice. Zhuo Feiyang was a petty person. He kept finding trouble with me. I could only teach him a lesson and make him stop. Chu shook his head. It's not shameful to be Brother Zhuo's scribe. Zhao Ying tried her best to persuade him. Chu stared at her for a while and said helplessly, You're an innocent and kind girl. Zhao Ying smiled embarrassedly. He was a proud man. Being Zhuo Feiyang's scribe was too much for him. Zhuo Feiyang had gone too far. Chu unsheathed his sword. Zhuo Feiyang, draw your sword. Zhuo Feiyang smiled proudly. He stepped in front of Chu and put on a palm technique. I don't need my sword to deal with you. Take this. Chu thrust his sword forward. Zhuo Feiyang's left palm went right through the sword and went straight for Chu's midsection. Chu took a step back to dodge and thrust his sword forward. Huh. Zhuo Feiyang had no choice but to change his move. Chu thrust his sword forward again. Zhuo Feiyang changed his move again. He decisively switched to a palm technique. His sword was soft and powerless, but it was aimed at Chu's vitals. Chu must be familiar with this palm technique. Chu thrust his sword forward again. Zhuo Feiyang had used up all his energy. He could only watch as the sword pierced his right wrist. Chu sheathed his sword and smiled. You still want to fight? Again. Zhuo Feiyang gritted his teeth. Chu raised the tip of his sword. Zhuo Feiyang clenched his palm into a fist and punched out. Chu thrust his sword forward. Ah! Zhuo Feiyang cried out in pain. His right palm was pierced by the sword. Chu's face was pale. He used his sword to support himself so that he would not fall. He had gathered all the energy in his body. His body was empty, and it felt terrible. The tip of the sword pierced through Zhuo Feiyang's palm. Zhao Ying quickly took out a porcelain bottle and sprinkled some powder on it to stop the bleeding. She looked at him worriedly. Chapter 6. Chu Li said, "Zhuo Feiyang, are you still not going to surrender?" Zhao Ying hurriedly said, "Brother Zhuo." Zhuo Feiyang glared at Chu Li. His breathing was getting heavier and heavier. Disbelief, indignation, and anger were all tangled together in his heart. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Zhao Ying called out softly, "Brother Zhuo." Zhuo Feiyang turned his head to look at her. Finally, he spat out 3 words, "I surrender." Slap, 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 slap. He slapped himself 6 times in one breath, and dense red marks appeared on his handsome face. Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. Victory and defeat are common for a soldier. What's the point? You? Zhuo Feiyang's eyes were spitting fire. "Brother Chu, don't talk so much." Zhao Ying rebuked. "Forget it. There's no point in saying it." Chu Li waved his hand. "Go back and focus on your cultivation. Don't take the praise seriously and foolishly think that you're a genius. I will repay you generously for what you have done for me today," Zhuo Feiyang said through gritted teeth. He then turned around and left. Zhao Ying pouted coquettishly. "Brother Chu, you're too much." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "Junior sister Zhao, he's very thick-skinned. He's not that fragile. I'll bring the moonlight orchid over immediately." Zhao Ying snorted, stomped her feet, and left. Liu let out a hearty laugh as he watched the 3 of them sail away. Chu Li, on the other hand, was swaying unsteadily. He quickly used his sword to support himself as his face grew paler. "Brother?" Liu wanted to help him, but was stopped by Chu Li. "It's not that serious. I just overexerted myself." "Then sit down quickly," Liu hurriedly said. Chu Li slowly returned to the green mulberry parterre. He reached out his hand and touched a green mulberry flower. A surge of spiritual energy immediately rushed into his body. His spirit was lifted, and he circulated the eternal spring technique twice. He felt even more energized, and all his fatigue disappeared. The eternal spring technique was a new mental cultivation method that he had cultivated. It was a Taoist technique that refined one's nature and extended one's lifespan. Activating the essence of the 5 grains, one could get rid of diseases and extend one's life. Ding! The sound of the jade chime rang. Liu ran out and quickly returned with the moonlight orchid. "Miss Zhao is truly trustworthy to have delivered it so quickly." Chu Li looked at the moonlight orchid happily and waved at it. Liu walked closer to him. "Do you want to move out?" Chu Li shook his head. His right hand touched the moonlight orchid. Cool and refreshing spiritual energy surged into it and circulated along the minute pulse cleansing technique. For the next few days, he sat next to the moonlight orchid almost all the time. He sensed the moonlight orchid and inquired about its habits and patterns. It was averse to water, and the dew was enough, so it could not be watered. It consumed a lot of fertilizer, especially when it glowed at night. The soil in the basin quickly became barren. In the end, Chu Li dried the mud at the bottom of the lake and mixed it with rotten soil to replace the soil in the basin. The moonlight orchid was not used to mud and rotten soil. Like a willful child, it would rather starve to death than eat the food it hated. Chu Li used the spiritual energy of the green mulberry flower to keep it alive. After a week, it slowly adapted and began to absorb the fertilizer. Chu Li sighed again. Without the life and death scripture, the moonlight orchid would not be able to survive. For the past month, Chu Li had been staying by the side of the moonlight orchid, not paying attention to the outside world. A new sprout had grown from the original root of the moonlight orchid, growing to half its height. Under the infusion of spiritual energy, the new moonlight orchid grew extremely quickly. This was also the wondrous effect he had discovered: accelerated growth. The life and death tree was like the king of flowers and plants. It could wither and flourish, and its life and death could be taken away. In an instant, countless thoughts came to him. If the moonlight orchid was like this, what would happen if it was replaced with other spirit herbs? What about those legendary exotic plants? If he could find their seeds, the life and death scripture could make them grow, shortening the growth cycle. The benefits were unimaginable. If he could open a floral pavilion, he could earn money like water. Liu kept urging him to report to the higher-ups, lest Gu Litong beat him to it. Chu Li had been suppressing the matter, so he could not cultivate a new moonlight orchid. It would be difficult for him to deal with those who doubted him. Moreover, the life and death scripture gave him confidence. In the evening, the sun was setting. Chu Li sat beside the two moonlight orchids, cultivating. Liu returned from outside and sat on the ground. "Brother, I have news. Gu Litong succeeded. It's not Gu Litong, it's Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang came out of isolation yesterday and challenged the ranking tower. He's now a rank 7 protector. He's brave and determined." Chu Li nodded casually. "It's not that surprising. He's quite talented." Liu looked at him in surprise. "Aren't you worried?" "Worried that he'll take revenge on me. If he comes looking for me again, I might not be his match. Then just reject him." Chu Li smiled. The public house's rules were to protect the weak, unlike outside the public house where the strong preyed on the weak. Of course, if you really wanted to live a comfortable life, you still had to work hard. Liu's eyes widened. "Reject? This?" Chu Li shrugged. "We're scribes after all. How can we compete with protectors in martial arts? If they have the guts, they'll compete with us in gardening." Liu sighed worriedly. "Brother, I feel like something's not right." Chu Li smiled. "All right, don't worry. Let's report to the herb garden tomorrow." He was on his guard. Zhuo Feiyang was not the kind of person who would take revenge. "That's right." Liu was excited. "We should have reported it a long time ago. Let's go after dinner tomorrow." "No, let's go right now." He stood up and left. Chu Li's face darkened. He was deep in thought. Zhuo Feiyang was a tough guy. Although it looked like he had won easily, he had given it his all. There were still 5 months before he could build his foundation, but Zhuo Feiyang would be even stronger after that. Meng Qinlin and Liu rushed over. They were overjoyed when they saw the new moonlight orchid. They patted Chu Li's shoulder and laughed. "Good boy, you're really something." Meng Qinlin laughed. "You really did it." Chu Li smiled. "It was a fluke." Meng Qinlin waved his hand and sat on the ground. "Young Chu, you're not faking it, are you? Don't play tricks just to beat Gu Litong." Liu shouted, "Elder Meng." Meng Qinlin rolled his eyes. "Why are you so excited?" "I was just asking. This is related to Lady Zhao's reputation. It's fine if you don't succeed, but it'll be more embarrassing if you fake it." Chu Li sat down and touched the moonlight orchid. He channeled his spiritual energy. "Elder Meng, this one is a new bud. I bought that one from the herb garden a month ago. You got it just by buying one." Meng Qinlin asked with a smile. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Meng Qinlin was full of smiles. Gu Litong had bought more than 10 moonlight orchids and spent a lot of money, but none of them grew. Chu Li, on the other hand, grew it with just one. "What luck?" Liu said, "Elder Meng, the herb garden said there's only one this year. There's a problem at Moonlight Island. Even if we wanted to buy another one, we wouldn't be able to." "Sigh, how can you take a businessman's word seriously? It's a rare commodity. I'm forcing you to buy it." Meng Qinlin laughed. "You really believe me?" "Elder Meng," Chu Li smiled. "From today onwards, the moonlight orchid will no longer be exclusive to the herb garden." Meng Qinlin looked at the half-grown moonlight orchid and rubbed his hands. "It's almost night. I want to admire the beauty of the moonlight orchid." He did not doubt Chu Li's words. Chu Li was a smart guy. He would not sacrifice his future for the sake of immediate benefits. There was no room for falsehood in this matter. If the moonlight orchid was successfully cultivated, it would have to be planted in all the gardens in the public house. They could buy 1, 2, or 10, but not hundreds of them. The herb garden did not have that many moonlight orchids. He asked this to remind them that the West Garden would not be satisfied. They would find a way to deny it and not let Chu Li show his face. Li showed off his culinary skills and made 8 dishes and 2 soups. The 3 of them ate until their stomachs were full. Night fell and the moon rose. Chu Li and the others saw 2 crescent moons and 2 moonlight orchids. It was unbelievably beautiful. "Sigh, Meng Qinlin was mesmerized. He sighed. It's so beautiful. Chu Li smiled. I've seen it many times. What a killjoy. Meng Qinlin glared at him. I won't get tired of it, even if I look at it for 100 years. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. The moon was beautiful, but how many people admired it every night? Young Chu, are you ready? Meng Qinlin looked at the moonlight orchid. Chu Li smiled. Ready for what? You're going to be famous. Meng Qinlin patted his shoulder. Even more famous than Gu Lidong. Chu Li smiled. About entering the herb garden, you'll have to be patient. The West Garden will try to stop you, but they won't be able to stop you. Yes, I'll leave it to you, Sir Meng. Sigh. Thanks to you, the East Garden can finally hold its head up high. Gu Litong alone had pressured the East Garden to the point of suffocation. A genius like Gu Lidong was rare. Gardeners were like doctors. They learned the same medical books, but their medical skills differed. The key was still talent. Meng Qinlin shouted, Bring me the wine. Liu ran over and brought 2 jars of wine. Meng Qinlin happily drank half of the jar and was soon drunk. He lay on the ground and slept until the next morning. Not long after Meng Qinlin left, a small boat floated over. A young lady in an apricot gown was standing on the boat. She was exceptionally beautiful, with almond eyes, a sharp nose, and a small mouth. She floated down to the shore and knocked on the jade bell. Chu Li and Li Yu appeared. Li Yu shouted, Chief Su, I'm sorry for not welcoming you earlier. Chu Li fist saluted. Hearing Li Yu's enthusiasm, he immediately knew who she was. She was Lady Shao Qi's personal maid, Su Ru. She had been by Lady Shao Qi's side since young. They were like sisters, master and servant. She held a high position in the public house. She was the chief of the Jade Guardian Island. To a scribe, she could decide their fate with a single word. Su Ru pursed her lips and smiled. She waved her hand. All right, enough with the pleasantries. I heard from Elder Meng that you guys made the moonlight orchid? Yes. Liu nodded proudly. Brother Chu made it. Su Ru's watery eyes fell on Chu Li's face. Chu Li smiled and fist saluted. Chu Li greets Chief Su. Su Ru smiled. The one who doesn't get along with Zhuo Feiyang? Chapter 7. Zhuo Feiyang came to the East Garden and immediately went back to isolated cultivation. When he came out, he passed the 3rd floor. Is that your contribution? Su Ru's eyes sparkled like stars as she stared at Chu Li. Chu Li nodded. You challenged Zhuo Feiyang? Su Ru laughed. How brave of you. Zhuo Feiyang is quite powerful. I had no other choice. I was forced to fight like a cornered beast. Did he lose? Su Ru was even more excited. He kept saying that he wanted you to work under him. Now he's silent. Li Yu was excited. Chief, you don't know. Zhuo Feiyang lost cleanly. He lost without a word. I thought you couldn't cultivate inner energy. Yes. Then how did he defeat Zhuo Feiyang? Chief, Chu Li's swordsmanship is amazing. Su Ru nodded. It seems like you have a talent for swordsmanship. What a pity. Chief, what's a pity? Li Yu asked. Without inner energy. Su Ru shook her head. It's fine against an acquired master, but it's useless against an innate master. Chu Li nodded slowly. He had read many books and learned many things about martial arts. An acquired master's inner energy would only circulate within their body. An innate master's inner energy could be transferred through objects. Su Ru said, Chu Li, you should focus on being a scribe. A scribe has a better future than a protector. Chu Li smiled. Su Ru tilted her head and looked at him. You don't believe me? A scribe is better. Chu Li nodded. You have power. You're a smart man. Su Ru smiled. A scribe has to earn rewards. But for a truly talented person, that's not a problem. Chu Li nodded. Su Ru thought that he was smart. He understood everything with just a few words. He was mature to be able to understand this at his age. She smiled. Take a look at the moonlight orchid. I've never seen it before. Li Yu smiled. The East Garden doesn't buy the moonlight orchid. I heard that the West Garden has bought it many times. We just need to take care of ourselves. Su Ru shook her head. Lady Shao did not allow them to buy the moonlight orchid, but the beauty of the moonlight orchid was irresistible. The 3 arrived at the moonlight orchid garden. Looking at the 2 moonlight orchids, Su Ru nodded in satisfaction. No wonder so many people are obsessed with it. Chuli, did he really succeed? Chuli said, "It will mature in a month, and it will sprout in another month. The new ones are ready. Send one to the West Garden first," Suru said. Li was puzzled. What? Suru rolled her eyes at him. Master Xiao Tying is Lady Zhao's brother after all. If there's something good, of course, you can't forget about him. Yes. Liu reluctantly agreed. There won't be any delays, right? Suru looked at Chuli. Chuli shook his head. I won't. Let's go and take a look elsewhere, Suru said. The lady will come over to take a look in a few days. All right, Liu exclaimed excitedly. Chief, please. Suru walked around the East Garden, giving a few pointers at every spot she passed. Every spot had its flaws. Liu took a pen and jotted them down seriously. Suru walked around the East Garden, giving a few pointers at every spot. Suru walked and stopped for half the morning. She returned to the moonlight orchid parterre. All right, that's all. Suru smiled. Don't let anything go wrong and ruin the lady's mood. Of course not. Liu patted his chest and promised. It doesn't matter how nice you say it. The most important thing is to do it well. Suru rolled her eyes at him. Don't be so impatient. Let's go. She waved her hand and walked away. She was as graceful as a willow branch, and her gentle demeanor could make anyone's heart beat faster. Chuli sighed. He did not know which man such a beautiful woman would end up with. He had to work harder. For the next 2 days, Chuli could only cultivate at night. He and Liu were so busy during the day that they did not even have time to take a sip of tea. They corrected the places that Suru pointed out. They were afraid that if the lady suddenly came, they would not be able to finish their work. There was no news from Meng Qinlin. It was quiet, which surprised Chuli. Gu Lidong was famous for being competitive and unscrupulous. He knew that Chuli had successfully cultivated the moonlight orchid, so he would not give up. He would definitely stir up a storm. Chuli guessed that the herb garden was in the midst of a fierce battle. He did not know if he could enter the herb garden or not. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chuli was cultivating in the moonlight orchid parterre. After 2 days of cultivation, the new moonlight orchid had grown a lot. Suddenly, the sound of a jade chime rang. Liu ran out impatiently and returned with 6 men. Their eyes were sharp and their spirits were strong. Chuli raised his eyebrows and activated the omniscient mirror. He could see the 6 men's bodies clearly. Their meridians were emitting a white light that merged with the milky white inner energy. This was the interior of an innate master. Liu said excitedly, "Brother, these seniors are the lady's protectors. The lady will be coming over later." Chuli stood up and closed fist saluted. The 6 middle-aged men returned the salute. They formed groups of 2 and walked around the island. In the end, the 6 of them stood guard at a key position. Chuli and Liu went to the shore and waited under the willow tree. "Brother, you're unlucky. The lady doesn't really like the moonlight orchid." Liu looked at the vast lake and sighed. "Or else, the lady would definitely value you." "The lady doesn't like it?" "Yes, the lady said that the moonlight orchid is too luxurious. She said that it's best not to touch it." "I see." Chuli nodded. It seemed that the lady did not like luxurious things. She was not tempted by them. This kind of person had a strong will. Coupled with her talent and status, it was no wonder that the guards of the imperial house respected her. Chuli was deep in thought. He was very weak now. If he wanted to climb up the ranks, he could only rely on the lady. The lady Xiao Qi was one of those thick legs. He needed to see her character first. The 2 of them talked for a while. A small boat floated towards them in the blink of an eye. Chuli used the omniscient mirror to see the 4 people on the boat. There were 2 old men with white eyebrows, Suru in an apricot gown, and a woman in a snow-white robe. Chuli could not care less about the surging power of the 2 old men. His attention was attracted by the woman. Her skin was jade white, and she was like a beauty carved from white jade. She emitted a warm luster, and her pair of phoenix-like eyes were glistening and overflowing with color as she looked around. What was more unique was her cold temperament. It was as if she did not care about anything. She was aloof and looked down on all living things. It was rare to see such elegance. "Greetings, lady." Liu took 2 steps forward and bowed from afar. Chuli did the same. Xiao-Qi waved her hand. It's fine. She glanced at Chu Li coldly and walked toward the island. Li Yu and Chu Li were at the back. In front of them were the two old men. Their aura was as strong as the mountains and the sea. Chu Li could barely breathe. He wanted to turn around and run away. The Lady Xiao-Qi was also an innate master. What was even more strange was that the primal aperture between her eyebrows was glowing like the stars in the night sky. The primal aperture was the heavenly chamber. It was where the void of the mind was located. Lighting it up meant that she had opened her third eye and could see through people's hearts. Chu Li focused his attention. Fortunately, the omniscient mirror was better and could see through her heart. However, she would notice when he tried to look into her heart. Lady Xiao, let's go see the moonlight orchid first. Suru said. Okay. Xiao-Qi nodded. The group arrived at the moonlight orchid parterre and looked at the two moonlight orchids. Xiao-Qi's cold gaze fell on Chu Li. Did you really cultivate them yourself? Yes. Chu Li fist saluted and nodded. Xiao-Qi asked, how did you succeed? Chu Li pondered for a while and decided to take a gamble. This was a rare opportunity. Zhou Feiyang had improved by leaps and bounds. He could not afford to do things step by step. Xiao-Qi's eyes flashed. Chu Li turned his head and looked around. Xiao-Qi waved her hand. You two can leave first. Suru, stay. Yes. The two old men looked at Chu Li and walked out of the parterre. They disappeared. Xiao-Qi quietly looked at Chu Li. She noticed that he was different. His heart was as calm as a lake. His thoughts were pure and focused. He was determined. He was definitely not an ordinary person. She then thought about his background. He grew up in the temple and was successful in his cultivation of Buddhism. It seemed that he had some skills. Xiao-Qi said, tell me. Chu Li calmly looked at Xiao-Qi and met her cold gaze. Lady Xiao, I can communicate with plants. Xiao-Qi frowned. She was skeptical. If someone else said that, she would have laughed it off. However, Chu Li's words could not be ignored. When one's cultivation of Buddhism reached a certain level, divine powers would appear. Chu Li said, plants don't have self-awareness, but they have emotions. They affect their growth and death. That's why you planted the moonlight orchid? Yes. To what extent can you do it? Chu Li pondered for a while and slowly said, to live or to die. Suru, go and get the winter star. Xiao-Qi turned her head and said. Suru responded and turned to leave. Xiao-Qi said, I heard from Elder Meng that you want to enter the herb garden? Chu Li nodded. Is it a waste of talent in the East Garden? Chu Li was impressed. He shook his head. I also want to see my limit. I want to see if I can control those spirit herbs. Xiao-Qi nodded. It was her first time meeting someone as calm as Chu Li. She felt that it was interesting. Ever since she cultivated the ancient scripture left behind by her mother, she could see through people's hearts. The world suddenly lost its warmth and beauty. Everything became dull and tasteless. Suru quickly brought a pot of dark blue flowers. The flowers looked like the stars in the night sky. Most of them had turned yellow as if they had suffered a drought and were dying. Suru put the flowers in front of Chu Li. Elder Meng and the others have seen this winter star. It's hopeless. Chu Li touched it, and his senses were connected. His breathing was sluggish. He used the omniscient mirror to observe. He dug the soil in the pot and found that half of the roots had rotted. Chu Li removed the rotten roots and replaced it with soil. He watered it and looked up. It will live tomorrow. Can it be saved? Suru looked at him curiously. Chu Li nodded. Xiao-Qi said, if you can really do it, don't enter the herb garden. Chu Li looked at her in surprise. Don't tell anyone else about your ability. Xiao-Qi said. Chu Li happily agreed. Yes. The next time the moonlight orchid sprouts, send one to the west garden. Yes. Xiao-Qi waved her hand. Go do what you need to do. Chu Li and Li Yu excused themselves. Li Yu let out a long sigh. Chu Li could not help but laugh. What are you nervous about? Nonsense, Li Yu said impatiently. Aren't you nervous standing in front of Lady Xiao? Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Li Yu cursed in his heart. Who could be compared to you? He scoffed. Can you really cure that pot of flour? No problem. Li Yu smiled. Lady Xiao said that you can't go to the herb garden. What should I do? Then I won't go. Sigh. That's too bad. Li Yu let out a sigh and smiled. Chapter 8. However, the third lady did not greet them anymore. She left at noon, leaving only her fragrance behind. Chu felt lost. Li Yu's head drooped, unable to muster up any energy. The quality of the winter star was average. It was not considered a spirit herb. The purity of its spiritual energy was similar to that of the willow tree. He was multitasking, touching the moonlight orchid with one hand and the winter star with the other. The spiritual energy of the moonlight orchid was channeled into the winter star through the minute pulse cleansing technique. With the moonlight orchid's spiritual energy, the winter star was full of life overnight. It was as green as a light drizzle. On the morning of the second day, Suru appeared in an apricot yellow gown, accompanied by a faint fragrance. Chu Li was cultivating in the moonlight orchid parterre. Li had been waiting under the willow tree by the lake. Finally, Suru appeared. He welcomed her enthusiastically. The two of them came to Chu Li. Suru waved him off. She stared at the winter star for a long time. She looked up and asked, "Chu Li, is this really the pot?" Chu Li nodded. "It's..." Suru could not believe it. She touched the winter star and finally believed it. "It's really the flower." She had made a small mark on the flower. No one would notice it. Chu Li sighed. Suru was so young, but she was so meticulous. She should not be underestimated. He should not be arrogant and think that he could do whatever he wanted with the omniscient mirror. Suru looked at Chu Li and suddenly smiled. "Chu Li, looks like you're quite capable." Fang Han smiled but did not say anything. Suru took out a silk handkerchief from her sleeves. There was a seed wrapped in it. She passed it to Chu Li. "This is a gift from a lady. Try to keep it alive." "What seed?" "Nightmare flower. Have you heard of it?" Chu Li thought for a moment. He searched through his memory palace. "The nightmare flower that keeps one's youth? You're so knowledgeable." Suru nodded in approval. "That's it." The lady might have put Chu Li in an important position. She had investigated Chu Li's situation after he entered the public house. He loved to read and was knowledgeable. He was the only one among the public house guardians. Almost everyone was focused on cultivating their martial arts and did not have the time to read. They felt that it was better to have a strong martial art than to know more. Chu Li's way of thinking was different from the others. Chu Li furrowed his brows. "It said that the nightmare flower grows on top of the clouds. I'm afraid the environment is... It's up to you." Suru smiled and pointed at the seed. "If you can really make it germinate and grow, then you're really capable." "All right, I'll try. If it doesn't grow, then it's better to obediently serve the flowers." "Yes," Chu Li said in a low voice. Li Yu tried to please her, offering to help deliver the winter star back. Suru rejected his offer and left. Li Yu stood under the willow tree and gazed into the distance for a long time. Even when the boat was out of sight, he could not bear to look away. Chu Li smiled. "Brother Li, is your soul gone?" Li Yu blushed and shouted, "Don't talk nonsense. Wake up." Chu Li shook his head. "That's not a woman we can think about." Li Yu lazily squatted down and scratched the ground with a grass stick. "Sometimes I'm not satisfied. I wish I could be a protector." Even if he mastered a peerless martial art, it would still be impossible for him to obtain a beauty like Chief Steward Su. There's always a glimmer of hope. Even if it's Zhuo Feiyang, Chief Steward Su doesn't care about him. "Are you more handsome and stronger than him?" "That mouth of yours." Li Yu pointed at him. "I can't even have a sweet dream. You just have to pour cold water on me. I'm just afraid that you'll do something stupid. Once you let your emotions get to your head, you'll do anything." Sigh. "I really don't know which man is worthy of Chief Steward Su. That's not something we should be concerned about. Let's get back to work." Chu Li sighed. His heart, however, was different. His ambition grew stronger and stronger. He wanted Shaoqi, Suru, and Zhaoying. He wanted them all so that he could return to this world. For the next month, Chu Li did not step out of the East Garden. That evening, the setting sun shone down on the East Garden, making it look even more gorgeous. Li Yu brought a pot of moonlight orchids to the West Garden and returned angrily. Chu Li sat in the moonlight orchids parterre. A green bud emerged from the soil beside him. The nightmare flower had already grown. Li Yu sat on the ground and cursed. "This Gulidong is a despicable person." Chu Li raised his head and looked at him. Li Yu said, You didn't see it. His nose is not a nose, and his face is not a face at all. It's like we owe him 10,000 taels. Chuli smiled. Just admit that you're not as good as him. What's with that face? It's not like you're asking him for the moonlight orchids. Liu was getting angrier as he spoke. Chuli asked, what else did he say? Nothing. Liu scoffed. Chuli smiled. He said that I was lucky and that it wasn't enough? Something like that. Liu curled his lips. He knew that this was a crucial time. If the nightmare flower really grew, Chuli would be valued by Lady Xiao. There was no need for him to be entangled with Gulitong. Chuli said, jealousy is inevitable. Did anyone see you sending the flower? Everyone in the West Garden was there. You even met two along the way. Are you afraid that they won't admit it? Liu's face turned serious. Are you trying to take it for yourself? The new moonlight orchids had adapted to the soil here. Gu Litong had used it to cultivate a few plants. If he insisted that it was his own research, it would be troublesome. Chuli said, I have to be careful. I'm going to look for Serming. Liu could no longer sit still. He stood up and strode away. Chuli shook his head and smiled. These were small matters. As long as he held onto Lady Zhao's thigh, his future would not be bad. Meng Qinlin quickly followed Liu. His face was glowing. Chuli stood up and greeted him. Haha, young Chu. I'm here to tell you good news. He patted Chu Li's shoulder and laughed. This time I can hold my head high. You didn't see Gu Litong's face. Chu Li smiled. Brother Li just sent a moonlight orchid, and Gu Litong didn't look happy. Meng Qinlin was overjoyed. Young Li, you came at the right time. Gu Litong was returning from the herb garden with his face covered in dirt. We bumped into each other. Liu shook his head. This Gu Litong is too much. It's understandable. Meng Qinlin laughed. Young Chu, you've leveled up again. You're now rank 8. Thank you, Sir Meng. Chu Li fist saluted. Meng Qinlin waved his hand. Young Chu, I'm sorry. You'll have to wait for a while before entering the herb garden. Chu Li looked at him. Meng Qinlin sighed. The people in the West Garden are going crazy trying to stop you. It'll take some time before there's a result. Don't worry. I see. Chu Li nodded. Of course, he would not tell Xiao Qi's decision. There was no benefit to it. Meng Qinlin said, you have to be careful of Gu Litong. He's determined to find fault with you. He won't be satisfied. Chu Li smiled. Actually, there's nothing wrong with competing. You'll only improve by learning from each other. I like your spirit. Meng Qinlin laughed and patted his shoulder. If you're not satisfied, come at me. Until you're satisfied, Liu shook his head. Gu Litong is still very powerful. Then you'll only be able to show off your skills if you win. Meng Qinlin laughed. If you're too weak, it'll be boring even if you win. Chu Li smiled and did not say anything. He understood that Meng Qinlin was trying to encourage him to win against Gu Litong again. He wanted to eliminate the obstacles in entering the herb garden. When the lanterns were lit, Chu Li was dragged out of the East Garden by Li Yu to the goddess brothel. How could they not celebrate his advancement to rank 8? The goddess brothel was located in the south of Chongming Town. It was not far from the south gate. It was a tall building with a signboard that fluttered in the wind. The whole town could see it. The two of them sat by the window on the second floor. They looked down at the busy streets. It was bustling with noise and excitement. They were the only ones who were sober. 4 jars of jade leaf brew were opened. The aroma of the wine filled the air. 10 delicious dishes were placed on the table. The two of them chatted while drinking. Li was excited. He laughed. Brother, this is the way. This is how life should be. We're getting such a high salary. Why don't we come out and enjoy ourselves? Chu Li smiled. This meal will cost at least 10 taels of silver, right? 6 taels is enough. Liu laughed. The food isn't worth much, but the wine is. It's 1 tael per jar. Chu Li was not sure about the price. We're getting 50 taels a month. Plus, there are rewards. That's true. Chu Li was also a person who liked to enjoy life. Good wine, good food, and beautiful women. He liked to drink the best wine and sleep with the most beautiful women. He had high standards. If he wanted to enjoy life, he would enjoy the best. He needed to have status, power, and martial arts before he could enjoy life. Yo, isn't this the famous Master Chu? Suddenly, a loud voice was heard. Two people stood in front of their table. Chu Li glanced at them. They were two young men. One was tall and skinny. He had long, narrow eyes. He looked at the two of them arrogantly. Beside him was a plump young man with a pale, fat face. "Gu Lidong," Liu shouted. The tall, skinny man said coldly, "Liu, Gu Lidong, you're following me?" Liu's face darkened. "What a joke." Gu Litong laughed coldly. "You're not a beauty. Why would I follow you? Chu Li, right?" His long, narrow eyes were bright. It was as if he wanted to see through Chu Li. "I'm Chu Li, Brother Gu. It's an honor to meet you." Chu Li looked at Gu Lidong. It was the first time they met. Gu Litong's martial arts was extraordinary. He could be a rank 9 protector. Gu Litong sat down without hesitation. He stretched out his hand. "Waiter, give me 2 more pairs of chopsticks." "Coming." Chu Li frowned. Gu Litong's actions showed that he did not take him seriously. "You're Chu Li?" The plump young man looked Chu Li up and down. "You're in the limelight." Chu Li looked at him. "And you are?" "Zhou Yuding," the plump young man said proudly. Chu Li suddenly realized. "Oh, it's you, Brother Zhou." Zhou Yuding was a rank 8 scribe. He was the son of High Official Zhou of the Martial Arts Hall. He had a wide network of contacts. Zhou Yuding picked up the wine jar and filled it for himself and Gu Litong. He put it down heavily. The two of them toasted each other. It was obvious that they were the hosts. Li was furious. However, Chu Li signaled him to calm down. Zhou Yuding put down his wine glass and looked at Chu Li. "Chu Li, tell me the truth. Did you really grow the moonlight orchid?" Chu Li smiled. "What do you mean, Brother Zhou?" "The moonlight orchid was grown by Brother Gu." Zhou Yuding put down his wine glass and said loudly. Chu Li was surprised. He looked at Zhou Yuding and Gu Lidong and laughed. "Zhou Yuding, what nonsense are you talking about?" Liu stood up and glared at him. "The moonlight orchid was grown by Gu Litong?" "That's right. It was grown by Brother Gu." Zhou Yuding took a sip of wine and nodded calmly. Chu Li stole Brother Gu's technique. People like him don't deserve to stay in the public house. Chu Li shook his head. "Nonsense." Liu's face was red with anger. "Zhou Yuding, you're too shameless. I was the one who sent the moonlight orchid. Many people saw it. Don't try to deny it." "Who saw it?" Zhou Yuding waved his hand. "They're lying for you. How dare they?" "Fong." Li was about to say his name when Chu Li interrupted him. "Forget it, Brother Li." Li looked at him. Chu Li filled his wine glass and held it up. "Come, let's have a drink after hearing such an interesting joke." Chapter 9. Such clumsy words are actually quite funny. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. He glanced at Gu Litong and Zhou Yuding and shook his head. "The two of you want to rely on your numbers to become a tiger. Sigh. Instead of thinking of such despicable methods, it's better to use your thoughts on the right path. It's not your place to lecture us." Zhou Yuding sneered. "Chu Li, on the other hand, have you gone crazy from wanting to be famous? How dare you do such a thing? Brother Zhou, you better shut up." Chu Li waved his hand and looked at Gu Litong. "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. I'm disappointed, very disappointed." Gu Litong scoffed. "What do you have to say?" Chu Li said. "Brother Gu, can you raise the moonlight orchid?" "What do you mean?" Gu Litong frowned. "I'm really worried for you, Brother Gu." Chu Li shook his head and laughed. "Do you think I wouldn't be prepared for such a low-level trick? It's not that easy to raise the moonlight orchid." Gu Litong's face darkened. "Isn't it able to adapt to the climate here?" Chu Li smiled. "It can adapt, but it's still important to know its personality. After all, it's naturally delicate and picky." Gu Litong sneered. "Chu Li, you're really cunning. You still have a trick up your sleeve." Chu Li nodded. "How satisfying." "Huh." Liu laughed out loud. He raised his glass and drank it in one go. Gu Litong and Zhou Yuding's faces darkened as they glared at Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. "Brother Gu, if I give you another year, can you produce the moonlight orchid?" "Of course." Gu Litong scoffed. "I succeeded very quickly, but the floral garden doesn't have any moonlight orchids this year." Chu Li said, "All right then, I can provide moonlight orchids to you. 1 per month, 12 per year. I'd like to see if you can succeed." Gu Litong scoffed. "Since you've already produced it, why waste your time?" Brother Gu, you're feeling guilty. Chu Li laughed. Gu Litong said coldly, Chu Li, don't be too proud. You won't be this lucky every time. If he wanted to raise the moonlight orchid, he really needed luck. He had already done research for a year, but there was not much progress. He had even bought soil from Moonlight Island, but it was useless. He guessed that Moonlight Island used a secret method to cultivate the moonlight orchids. In the same environment, the same soil, and the same climate, it would not be able to grow them without a secret method. Zhou Yuding snorted, Surname Chu, be careful. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, Brother Zhou, are you threatening me? Do you want to use force? Of course I won't break the rules of the mansion. Zhou Yuding smiled, but the people outside the mansion might not give you face. Then I'll have to report this to the people from the punishment hall first. Chu Li shook his head. Zhou Yuding's methods were really low-level and unscrupulous. Do you think the punishment hall will care about you? Zhou Yuding said proudly, I'm just joking. Chu Li put down his wine glass and leaned towards Zhou Yuding. If I'm injured, no one will take care of the moonlight orchids, and many will die. Think about it. How great of a loss would that be? Will the manor protect you just because you're old Zhou's son? Zhou Yuding snorted with a sullen face. Chu Li sighed softly. Let me be honest with you, Brother Zhou. Zhou Yuding looked at him impatiently. Chu Li sighed. Other than having a good father, you're useless. Gu Litong pointed a gun at you, and yet you're still so excited. If old Zhou knew about this, he'd probably roll his eyes in anger. Shut up, Zhou Yuding yelled. Don't talk about my father. He hated it when people said that he relied on his father to get to where he was today. Chu Li's words were like knives, stabbing into his heart. Brother Zhou, Chu Li looked at him in shock. If it weren't for old Zhou, who are you? Do you think you earned everything you have? Surname Chu. Zhou Yuding stood up and slammed the table. You mother asterisk cur, you're asking for it. Chu Li sat up straight, picked up his wine glass, and took a sip. Brother Zhou, it's just a few words of truth. Compared to your accusations just now, it's not even worth mentioning. Surname Chu, just you wait. Zhou Yuding gritted his teeth and turned to leave. Gu Litong quickly got up and followed, afraid that Zhou Yuding would do something stupid. Chu Li could not be touched now. If anything happened, the public house would not let it go easily. Ha! Li Yu let out a hearty laugh. Chu Li smiled. He finally had some confidence. If he wanted to borrow the power of the public house, he would need to have a certain status and contribution in the public house. A servant like him would have no place to speak when he was bullied. The two drank to their heart's content. After a full meal, they went downstairs. They walked around the town and came to a building that was so tall that it could reach the clouds. It was brightly lit like a heavenly palace. Music could be heard coming from the clouds. This is the new moon brothel. Come in and take a look. Li Yu invited Chu Li in to broaden his horizons. Chu Li waved his hand and shook his head. He had not mastered his martial arts, so it was not appropriate for him to lose his virginity. Sigh. Li Yu shook his head and sighed, as if Chu Li had missed a lifetime of regret. The two walked back and arrived at the south gate of the public house. Strings of lanterns lit up the gate, making it as bright as day. On the vermilion gate, bronze nails the size of a palm shone brightly. On both sides of the gate were stone lions that looked ferocious and intimidating. On the left side of the stone lions stood Gu Litong and Zhou Yuding. They waved at Chu Li and Li Yu. Li Yu scoffed. These two, what are they trying to do now? Chu Li walked closer and smiled as he closed fist saluted. Brother Gu, Brother Zhou, what else do you want? Gu Litong looked at Chu Li's smiling face and sighed. Chu Li was cunning and cunning. He was a formidable opponent. Zhou Yuding gritted his teeth and cursed. What a hypocrite. Damn it, damn it. Cough, cough. Gu Litong cleared his throat and smiled. Brother Chu, to be honest, I'm still a little unconvinced. I think you're just lucky, so I'd like to have a serious match with you. What does Brother Gu want to spar with? Have you heard of the cloud jade grass? It can lighten one's body and expel impurities. It can also improve one's light body technique. It's a rare spirit herb. It's considered a rank 7 spirit herb, right? Yes, The cloud jade grass is rare. I have some of its seeds here. Brother Chu, you could try growing them. Brother Gu, did you manage to grow them? I was lucky. Gu Litong nodded proudly. A rank 8 scribe managed to grow a rank 7 spirit herb. Moreover, it was a rare spirit herb. He was undoubtedly a genius. Zhou Yuding passed a bag of seeds to Chu Li. Take it. These seeds are very precious. Chu Li waved his hand and did not accept it. He smiled. Brother Gu, you're very calculative. How about this? Since we're going to compete, let the Her Garden decide the topic. Even if he managed to grow these seeds, he would only be on par with Gu Litong. If he failed, he would lose to him. Even if he had the life and death scripture, he would not be arrogant. Of course, he would not accept this. Zhou Yuding scoffed. You're afraid of losing, aren't you? Chu Li looked at Gu Litong. Since we're going to compete, let's have a proper match. Don't use these dirty tricks. All right, it's settled then. Gu Litong scoffed. This Chu Li was very cunning. He could not scheme against him, so he had to win fair and square. Chu Li said, then it's settled. He followed Liu into the public house and took the small boat back to the East Garden. Liu shook his head. This Gu Litong, he's such a despicable person. Chu Li nodded. Gu Litong was a narrow-minded person. He could not tolerate others and liked to use underhanded methods. This kind of person had to be ruthlessly attacked until he did not dare to resist. He had to attack him from all aspects, from his mentality and his herbalism techniques, to destroy his courage to fight against him. Chu Li returned to the Moonlight Orchid Parterre. The Nightmare Flower was the most important. The competition with Gu Litong was just a pastime. The next day was calm. On the morning of the third day, Chu Li touched the Nightmare Flower and cultivated the Minute Pulse cleansing technique. The energy of the Nightmare Flower was even purer than the Moonlight Orchid. Chu Li was confident that he could successfully build his foundation in 3 months. Soft footsteps could be heard. Through the omniscient mirror, Chu Li saw that it was Su Ru, dressed in an apricot gown. Chu Li stood up and closed fist saluted. Chief Su Ru. Su Ru waved her hand. Forget it. Did you make a bet with Gu Litong? Chu Li nodded. I had no choice. He was overbearing. If I didn't accept the challenge, he would have looked down on the East Garden. That's true. We can't let the East Garden's reputation down. Su Ru furrowed her brows. But your attention should be on the Nightmare Flower. Chu Li pointed. The Nightmare Flower is growing well. This is the Nightmare Flower. Su Ru's eyes widened. It can't be. It's growing so fast. It's as bright and short as fireworks. It was born in a remote area. Within a month, it would break through the soil, bloom, and bear fruit. Then, along with the leaves, it would rot and turn into mud, leaving no trace. It was like a dream. If one was lucky, they would be able to find the seed, but it was rare. That was why the Nightmare Flower was so precious. More importantly, the Nightmare Flower only bloomed at night. It only bloomed for one night. Even those who had seen it before would think that it only bore fruit. Can you really make it bloom? Su Ru asked. Chu Li nodded. Then I'll wait and see. Chief, are you trying to remind me when to pick it? It seems like you really do know. I'll watch carefully and not miss the blooming period. If you can pick the Nightmare Flower, you'll have done a great service. Lady Xiao will reward you handsomely. I'll do my best. You can't do your best. You have to make sure nothing goes wrong. Yes. Chu Li nodded slowly. Su Ru looked away from the Nightmare Flower. The Her Garden is in a fierce fight. They can't decide what flower to plant. That shouldn't be a problem for the herb garden, right? Isn't it because the fight is too fierce? Su Ru shook her head. Lady Xiao is a little impatient. She wants me to settle this quickly. Chu Li smiled. Chief, what's your decision? The deity's beard, Su Ru said. It's the best horse feed. It's been lost for generations. The public house still has a batch of seeds. The deity's beard. Chu Li searched in his mind. It was a strange type of grass. It was of little use to humans, but it was a wonderful thing for horses. It could improve the horse's physique. The survival rate of the deity's beard was low. It could only grow a small piece under the right conditions. Until now, no one had figured out its habits. Some said it needed fresh blood, some said it needed rapid changes in temperature, and some said it needed the feces of the wild horse king. There were all kinds of reasons, but no conclusion was made. Chuli, can you plan it? What grade is it? It's probably around rank 6. I can try. All right, then it's settled. Suru clapped her hands. All right, that's it. I'm leaving. She waved her hand and left. It seemed slow, but she disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chapter 10. In the evening, Meng Qinlin delivered the seeds of the deity's beard. It was a handful of seeds the size of rice, each crystal clear. He reminded them that the time limit was 1 month. Whoever could grow the seeds would be the winner. The survival rate of the seeds would be determined. Everyone had the same number of seeds. No one dared to cheat. Before Meng Qinlin left, he patted Chu Li's shoulder. Young Chu, don't worry too much about this competition. Chu Li glanced at him. Meng Qinlin said, this is a false reputation. If you want to achieve something, you can't be burdened by it. People like us have to calm down. If we can't calm down, we won't be able to go far. Chu Li smiled. Thank you, Sir Meng. These words came from the bottom of his heart. He did not treat himself as an outsider. Young Chu, you have talent. The most important thing now is to calm down and not fight for fame. You can't fight for the limelight when researching plants. You'll be impatient when you fight for the limelight. Don't be like Gu Litong. Sir Meng, I'm young and energetic. I like fame too. Chu Li smiled. Meng Qinlin shook his head. Gu Litong loves fame. Fighting for it will stimulate his strength. You're different. You can't walk the same path. Chu Li fist saluted. Thank you, Sir Meng. He was no different from Gu Litong. They were both self-centered. It was only because he had lived 2 lives that he could control his emotions. Gu Litong pursued fame and fortune. Chu Li pursued power. Fame and fortune could be put aside. Meng Qinlin patted his shoulder and left. Chu Li went to the lake to send him off. When he returned, he held the seeds and quietly felt their vitality. Half of them were full of vitality, while the other half was dying. He sat in the moonlight orchid parterre and transferred his energy to nourish the seeds. When they were full of vitality, he scattered them evenly on the ground and covered them with a shallow layer of mud. He pressed his palm on the ground. Through the shallow mud, he could still feel the seeds. He was relieved. He suddenly realized that the mud could not isolate his connection with the plants. He tried it. Within 10 meters, he could use the earth to establish a connection with the seeds. He did not use his hands. Instead, he used his feet to exchange spiritual energy. It was no different than using his hands. In fact, any part of his body was the same. He could exchange spiritual energy with the earth even if he was lying down. He tried it again. It was the same as the other flowers and plants. He didn't need to touch them within 10 meters, and he could use the earth to conduct spiritual energy. Night fell, the moonlight was like water, and the stars were dim. Moonlight Orchid Garden. Chu Li and Liu sat at the stone table, drinking tea. The red clay stove beside them was bubbling and emitting white steam. The fragrance of tea wafted through the air. The lantern was not lit, but it did not hinder his eyes. There was moonlight in the surroundings, and the 3 moonlight orchids emitted a watery brilliance. With the addition of the snow orchids in the surroundings, the light in the flower garden was soft and dreamy. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Xiao Qi and Su Ru walked over gracefully, as if they were floating on clouds. They were indescribably graceful. Liu hurriedly stood up. The 2 women were dressed in white. It was as if they had been standing there all along, hidden in the darkness. Suddenly, they were revealed by the light. Chu Li stood up to greet him. Xiao Qi's body exuded a warm luster, making her look like an otherworldly fairy. She gently waved her hand. Sit down. Liu respectfully set up 2 wooden stools and invited the 2 ladies to take a seat. He was worried that the stone stools would be too cold for them to sit on. Suru held a small box in her hand. She opened it and took out a tea set made of sheep fat white jade. Her slender hands and the sheep fat white jade tea set complemented each other. It was breathtaking. Suru elegantly washed the pot and cup, then poured tea for Xiao Qi. She then looked up at Chu Li. Chu Li, can it really bloom at night? Chu Li nodded. Yes. If you're wrong, I won't forgive you. Suru rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li smiled. Don't worry, Chief. It will bloom tonight. After tonight, it will turn into mud. That's good. Suru nodded and scoffed. Are you confident that you can grow the deity's beard? No problem. Umph, you're quite arrogant. Suru squinted her eyes and rolled her eyes at him. You really don't know how to count. No matter what, you should at least leave some leeway, right? Aren't you afraid that something unexpected might happen? Chu Li said, the deity's beard is already sprouted. It will only break through the soil in 2 days. Oh, Suru was surprised. So soon? This thing doesn't sprout easily. Chu Li smiled and did not say anything. They needed enough spiritual energy to germinate, so they had a high requirement for the environment. If they were left to their own devices, they would need to absorb spiritual energy for many years before germinating. Most of the time, they would rot before germinating. So you're saying that you can win against Gu Litong? Suru asked. Chu Li smiled. No problem. I'd like to see what you'll do if you lose. Suru scoffed. Gu Litong is not someone to be trifled with. Be careful, Chu Li said. As long as he doesn't play any tricks, he won't win. Suru pouted and rolled her eyes at him. Liu kept signaling him to watch his words. Chief Suru was not someone he could afford to offend. Xiao Qi quietly drank her tea and did not say a word. Chu Li suddenly pointed at the nightmare flower that was as thick as a thumb. It's starting. The nightmare flower was growing rapidly. After a month, it was as thick as a thumb. There were 2 flower buds hanging on its branches. The strangest thing was that it had no leaves, only bare branches and flower buds. As soon as Chu Li finished speaking, the flower bud trembled and slowly opened up. Xiao Qi and Su Ru were surprised. The flower bud bloomed at a speed visible to the naked eye. 10 minutes later, it was completely bloomed. The snow-white petals seemed to be shining. Su Ru murmured, so beautiful. Chu Li had read the introduction of the nightmare flower before. This was the first time he saw it bloom. It was indescribably beautiful, and he was inexplicably touched. An hour later, the petals began to change color. They were dyed a layer of pink. Another hour passed, and the petals turned crimson. The petals changed color every hour. In the end, they became colorless again. They looked like 2 peony flowers carved from ice. Chu Li stretched out his hand and pinched, picking the 2 flowers with ease. Xiao Qi, Su Ru, and Liu stared at him angrily. Chu Li put the 2 flowers into the jade box and gently closed it. He let out a long sigh of relief. In the blink of an eye, the flower withered and turned yellow. Chu Li blew on it, and the flower turned into dust that was blown away by the wind. The 3 of them then came back to their senses. The nightmare flower seemed to have an incredible power. It made people love and cherish it. Lady Xiao, it's done. Chu Li pushed the jade box in front of Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi looked at the jade box and nodded. Su Ru asked, Lady Xiao, do you want to try it? Yes, I have to. Xiao Qi nodded. Let me do it. Su Ru was eager to try. Xiao Qi glared at her. Su Ru smiled to please her. Chu Li said, if I'm not mistaken, 1 flower can maintain one's youth for 60 years. 2 flowers can maintain one's youth for 90 years. It's a pity there are no more seeds. There's 1 more, Su Ru said. Xiao Qi thought for a moment. Su Ru, go get it. Yes. Su Ru answered excitedly and fluttered away. Not long after, she returned with a small box in her hand. She presented it to Xiao Qi with both hands. Xiao Qi opened it and pushed it in front of Chu Li. Chu Li took out the seed and frowned. What's wrong? Xiao Qi asked. Chu Li shook his head. This seed is dead. Dead? Li was shocked. It can't grow anymore? Chu Li nodded slowly and looked at Xiao Qi helplessly. There's no vitality left. Lady Xiao, forgive me for not being able to help. Xiao Qi smiled faintly. Forget it then. Chu Li, this matter will not spread and your rank will not be raised. Yes. Chu Li nodded. Liu looked at Xiao Qi curiously. Su Ru chuckled. Chu Li, aren't you angry? Chu Li smiled. As a scribe of the garden, this is what I should do. It's rare for you to have such awareness. Su Ru smiled. Don't worry, Lady Xiao will not mistreat you. Chu Li said, I'm grateful that Lady Xiao thinks so highly of me. Su Ru rolled her eyes at him. Lady Xiao is preparing to open up a spiritual land in the East Garden. I'll leave this matter to you. A spiritual land? Chu Li was shocked. The soil of the Her Garden was different from that of a normal garden. It was obtained at a high price. It was said that the method of producing spiritual land had been lost. Only the royal family had it, but it was kept a secret. The books in the library did not have a complete method. Chu Li compared more than 10 books and found the method of producing spiritual land. He mentioned to Su Ru that he found the method of producing spiritual land. Su Ru did not pay much attention to it at that time. She did not expect him to take it seriously. An inch of spiritual land was worth an inch of gold. It was even more expensive than gold. Even if a normal person knew the method of producing spiritual land, it would be useless. It required spirit herbs and decaying soil to be mixed together. This spirit herb was not something that a normal rich family could afford. Xiao Qi asked, "You can't do it?" Chu Li said, "Lady Xiao is really bold. This spiritual land won't be too big. Try to plant some rare spirit herbs," Xiao Qi said. Chu Li fist saluted. "I won't let you down." With a spiritual land, he would not have to go to the herb garden to suffer from the smoke. With his own cultivation land, he could cultivate in peace. The matter of the spiritual land is already being handled. Xiao Qi said, "Keep it a secret." Chu Li nodded slowly. Xiao Qi said, "Logically, you should find someone with experience to help you, but Lady Xiao, I can do it alone." "I'll give it a try," Chu Li said. "That's good." Xiao Qi nodded and stood up. "It's late. You should rest." Su Ru picked up the jade box. "Chu Li, behave yourself for the next few days. Don't cause any more trouble." "I will admit defeat to Gu Litong," Chu Li said. Xiao Qi looked at him deeply and turned to leave. Su Ru smiled and rolled her eyes. She waved her hand to indicate that she did not need to send him off and left. Liu stared at Chu Li with his eyes wide open. Chu Li was deep in thought. "You really want to admit defeat?" Liu could not help but ask. Chu Li nodded. "Why?" Liu scoffed. "I can't stand Gu Litong's face. I really want to slap him." Chu Li said, "A little impatience will spoil the big plan. All right, you better keep your mouth shut and don't tell anyone else." Liu understood. Lady Xiao wants to build a herb garden in secret. Chapter 11. The next morning, Chu Li finished his cultivation and went to the moonlight orchid parterre. The nightmare flower was empty, without a trace. It was like a beautiful firework that turned to ashes after its brilliance. This was the nightmare flower. Chu Li suddenly noticed a faint trace of life underground. He activated the omniscient mirror and shone it on the ground. A seed was lying quietly a meter deep. This seed was the same as the one Xiao Qi gave him. So this was how the nightmare flower's seed came about. It bloomed, bore fruit, and grew seeds. This was normal, but the nightmare flower's seed was like this. It was no wonder it was so rare that it became extinct. Chu Li's mind raced. He knew that the truth could not be contained. He did not have the right to keep it for himself. So he asked Liu to send him to the Jade Guardian Island. The Jade Guardian Island was 10 times bigger than the East Garden. The trees were lush, and the pavilions were lined up neatly. It was a place of luxury and luxury. Before reaching the Jade Guardian Island, Chu Li stood at the bow of the boat. He could feel a turbulent force waiting for him, ready to pounce on him at any time. He activated the omniscient mirror. There were 12 different forces in the willow forest. Any one of them could kill him in an instant. This is Lady Zhao's Jade Guardian Island. Be careful when you get there. Don't wander around. Liu shook his head. Be careful. He looked at the Jade Guardian Island as if it was a monster. Chu Li smiled and nodded. The boat docked and a middle-aged man emerged from the forest. He looked at Chu Li with sharp eyes, as if he could see through Chu Li. Chu Li fist saluted and reported his identity, requesting to see Chief Su. The middle-aged man nodded and did not say a word. He stood still. Chu Li waited quietly, knowing that someone had already gone to pass the message. After a while, Su Ru appeared in an apricot gown. She was like a willow in the wind, blending in with the surrounding willow branches. Chu Li. Su Ru waved her hand, gesturing for Chu Li to skip the formalities. She looked at him in surprise. Is there anything I can help you with? Chu Li nodded but did not say a word. "Follow me." Su-Ru understood that he wanted to speak to her in private. Her steps were light and fast. Chu-Li strode after her, and soon they arrived at a pagoda. A plank road extended out of the Jade Guardian Island, leading to the small pavilion on the lake. It was an octagonal red pillar with hanging eaves and flying horns. It hung alone on the lake, secluded and remote. Su-Ru sat on the garden stool and gestured for Chu-Li to sit down and talk. "Speak." Chu-Li sat down. "Chief, I still have one more seed of the nightmare flower. Isn't he dead?" Su-Ru frowned. The nightmare flower was the most lethal to women. No woman could resist the temptation of eternal youth. Previously, he did not care much about the seed of the nightmare flower and threw it in a corner. Seeing Chu-Li's extraordinary ability to plant flowers, he took it out and tried it out. He did not think that he would actually grow it. Seeing the two nightmare flowers, she hated herself for being careless. If she had kept them well, the seeds might not have died. Chu-Li told her about his speculation. "Does that mean that the nightmare flower will always have seeds?" "It's possible. I have to take the risk." Chu-Li pondered. "How did you get those two seeds?" "Mrs. always kept it." Su-Ru said. "It was left behind by the madam. It was originally thrown in a corner, but no one knows how she got it." "I have a theory. The nightmare flower's disappearance might have something to do with its characteristics. The seeds that it bears are probably fake and will not germinate. The one left in the root is the real seed, but it's too risky to test it." "What's wrong with that? Next time I plant it, I'll just leave one flower." "It's not that simple. It's possible that once it bears fruit, it won't become a real seed." Chu-Li shook his head. "Wouldn't it be a waste?" Su-Ru frowned and nodded. Chu-Li's thoughts were very thorough. Chu-Li said, "I'm also worried that the seed has a lifespan. It might disappear after 2 or 3 blossoms." Su-Ru stared at him. "What do you think?" Chu-Li shook his head. "If I get another seed, I can test it. There's only one. I don't dare to do anything." Su-Ru smiled. "You could have kept this seed for yourself." Chu-Li was an expert. He knew the value of this seed, and no one else knew about it. He could have taken it for himself, but he did not. Based on his understanding, Chu-Li was an extremely intelligent person. It was difficult for an intelligent person to be selfless. Chu-Li smiled. "Compared to this seed, I care more about Lady Zhao's favor. Besides, how do I know that this isn't a test from Lady Zhao?" He was also testing to see if Shao Qi was worth serving. "You're a smart person." Su-Ru smiled. "Follow me." She turned around and left the gazebo. She passed through the forest and several pavilions before arriving at a tall building. It was a bronze building that looked like a library. The words "Stargazing Tower" were written on it. It had 3 floors and was 100 meters tall. Standing at the bottom of the tower made one feel inexplicably small. When the two of them passed by, maids would occasionally float by. They were light and silent. Their light body technique was extraordinary, and their cultivation level was higher than rank 8 protectors. Su-Ru brought him directly to the top of the stargazing tower. The top of the tower was spacious. Standing on it, the vast lake and the small islands were all in front of them. There was a small tea table, 2 embroidered stools, a tea set, and 5 exquisite plates of snacks and fruits. There was nothing else. Shao Qi was dressed in white and was practicing her swordsmanship. The light from her sword was as clear as water. Even from 10 meters away, Chu-Li could feel the chill and goosebumps all over his body. "Lady Zhao." Su-Ru came closer and called out softly. Shao Qi kept her sword and tossed it to Su-Ru. She then looked at Chu-Li. Chu-Li fist saluted. Su-Ru took the long sword and sheathed it. She hung it on the wall and said, "Chu-Li found the nightmare flower and left a seed. He determined that it can bloom. Let him speak." Shao Qi's clear eyes fell on Chu-Li's face. Chu-Li told her about his previous speculation and worries. Shao Qi frowned and pondered. After a while, she looked up and said, "Let that seed bloom first. I'll look for it. If it can grow 10 flowers, I'll promote you to rank 6. "Thank you, Lady Zhao." Chu-Li fist saluted. He was currently rank 8. If he were to work hard, he would be promoted to rank 7 in 10 years. After 30 years, he would be promoted to rank 6. Rank 6 would jump to the middle level. It was only one rank away from rank 7, but the difference was huge. Xiao Qi said, "I'll get the seed as soon as possible." Chu Li nodded. He looked hesitant. "Just say it," Xiao Qi said. Chu Li said, "Lady Xiao, are you planning to build the herb garden in the East Garden?" "Yes, that's the plan." "What do you think?" "I think it's better to build it here." "Worried about safety?" Chu Li nodded. "There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall. When that time comes, rare spirit herbs could drive people to take risks. When that time comes, the East Garden would be the first to bear the brunt. Both his and Li Yu's lives would be in danger." "Let me think about it." Xiao Qi nodded. The pros and cons of this matter needed to be weighed carefully. Chu Li Fist saluted and left. For the next month, he almost never left the house. He stayed in the moonlight orchid parterre, cultivating the moonlight orchids and watching the nightmare flower. The nightmare flower sprouted and grew again. He tried to plant the deity's beard. He planted a few seeds and understood its habits. Just as he expected, it devoured spiritual energy like a monster. If these seeds were to be planted, the land would be wasted. It would take at least 5 years for the land to recover. He did not want the East Garden to be a barren land. He focused all his energy on the nightmare flower. He connected his senses with it day and night. He became a nightmare flower, feeling the bloom and death of life. He had a deeper understanding of the life and death scripture. The moonlight was like water. Chu Li sat alone in the moonlight orchid parterre. He plucked 2 flowers and carefully placed them in a jade box. His spirit was still connected to the nightmare flower. He felt its death. After death, there was still a trace of life. There was life in death, and there was death in life. The cycle of life and death. Suddenly, the words of the life and death scripture flashed in his mind. The life and death tree appeared in the void of his mind. The life and death tree became clearer and more majestic. Boom! His vision went black. His spirit leaped into the life and death tree. The vastness drowned his spirit. He turned into the life and death tree. Endless years and scenes flashed in front of his eyes. The world was destroyed. Humans were like ants in a flood. They struggled in vain. They screamed in pain and kowtowed piously. But they could not stop the destruction. After a long time, the world opened up again. Plants grew. The world was destroyed again. It opened up again and was destroyed again. Countless times of life and death. In these countless times of life and death, the most tenacious were not humans, but the plants. They absorbed the essence of the world and grew tenaciously. They sprouted in spring and bloomed in summer. They bore fruit in autumn and hid in winter. They used the earth to protect themselves and absorb energy. It felt like a long time, but also like a moment. Chu Li slowly woke up. He did not know when his spirit returned to his body. His connection with this world was deeper. He moved his mind, and the entire East Garden was covered by the omniscient mirror. The moon hung in the night sky. Based on the position of the moon, he estimated that about an hour had passed. In a flash, the world had changed. The omniscient mirror could see inside and outside. He first observed himself. His spiritual energy had increased by 2 times. The omniscient mirror could see 3 miles away. He could connect with the flowers and plants 100 meters away. Through the earth, spiritual energy was connected. The spiritual energy became as dense as water. It was different from the misty spiritual energy he absorbed before. He suddenly understood that the spiritual energy of plants could be innate and acquired. Previously, he could touch the acquired spiritual energy. Now he could control the innate spiritual energy. After it entered his body, his meridians swelled. He activated the minute pulse cleansing technique. He smiled. His smile grew wider and wider. His meridians shone with a white light. Not only was his foundation completed, but he had also completed the opening of his meridians. He had leaped past the first level. His body was strengthened by an invisible force. His muscles, bones, meridians, every part of his body became unusually strong. His body was filled with endless power. He wanted to look up to the sky and roar. After observing for a while, he slowly calmed down. The vitality of a nightmare flower seed was weak. He used his spiritual energy to nourish it and restore its vitality. The effect of his spiritual energy was getting stronger. After a while, the seed was full of vitality. It began to germinate and continue the next round of growth. The next morning, Suru arrived at the moonlight orchid parterre. She was as beautiful as ever. When Chuli saw her beautiful face, he felt a sense of familiarity. It was like meeting an old friend. Last night, he had experienced a few reincarnations. His state of mind had aged a lot. Meeting Suru again was like returning to the world. It felt like a lifetime ago. Suru took out a small jade box from her sleeve and handed it to him. Chuli, these are 2 seeds. You could try your idea. Chuli took it with both hands and passed the big jade box to her. Suru asked, "Have you planted the deity's beard?" Chuli nodded and told her his concerns. Suru opened her eyes and smiled. "Yes, Gu Lidong hasn't planted it yet." Chuli raised his eyebrows. Suru said, "The deity's beard is a magical item for horses. It's not a big deal to waste a few pieces of land. It's too strong. It's not suitable to eat too much of it," Chuli said. Suru smiled. "The deity's beard can't be eaten too much. Half a pound is enough. It can improve a horse's bone structure." "If Lady Xiao wants to plant it," Chuli said, "it's best to plant it outside the public house." Suru frowned. "I'll ask Lady Xiao. You should plant the nightmare flower first. There are already 4 of them. If you plant 6 more, it'll be rank 6. "No problem." He didn't plant it. "You don't have to admit defeat. It's a draw." Suru smiled. Chapter 12. Suru left, bringing with her a faint fragrance. The entire east garden lost its luster. Chuli felt inexplicably melancholic. He used his spiritual energy to nourish the 2 seeds and planted them. They quickly germinated and grew rapidly. After 2 days, they broke out of the soil and revealed their tender green sprouts. He noticed that they grew exceptionally fast and their growth rate doubled. 1 month was shortened to 10 days. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the early morning, the white mist was like a veil, rolling over the vast lake like a dream. Suru appeared with a faint fragrance. She gracefully stood in front of the moonlight orchid parterre and looked at Chu Li with a smile. "Are you really done?" Chu Li pointed at the 6 jade boxes on the stone table. Suru smiled. "So fast. Practice makes perfect." Chu Li smiled. "The temptation of rank 6 is too great. This time I risked my life." Suru said, "Rank 6 is worth it. Once you enter the middle level, you can enter the Wisdom Tower to read some secret books. I'm sure you'll be interested." "Yes." Chu Li smiled and nodded. The 4th floor of the Wisdom Tower was called the Unusual Scriptures Pavilion. Only rank 6 could enter. There were incomplete scriptures and secret stories that ordinary people could not understand. "Chief, can I enter the Hall of Martial Arts?" "Hall of Martial Arts." Suru was stunned. "You still haven't given up and want to practice martial arts?" Chu Li smiled. "Of course you can. You're rank 6. You can see the best secret books." Suru said regretfully. "Unfortunately, the better the martial arts, the stronger the foundation." Martial arts was no different from other subjects. For example, learning advanced mathematics without a good foundation was like reading a book from heaven. There must be some who take the unconventional path, right? There are some, but it's best not to practice. I'm just curious. The ranks in the public house are universal. Once you reach rank 6, you can see the secret books of the enlightened master's boundary. Although the secret books are important, you can't practice without enough resources. Chuli nodded. Practicing martial arts was similar to studying medicine in the future. With a good teacher, frequent practice, and watching high-level surgeries, one could not become a miracle doctor just by reading a medical book. Chuli, you're a smart person. I don't have to say anything, but I still have to remind you. Don't practice martial arts before you've built your foundation. Thank you, Director. Sigh. You. Suru smiled and shook her head. She felt that Chuli would not listen to her advice. The martial arts hall was a towering bronze building, almost identical to the library. It stood behind a vast and empty training field, its bronze luster flashing. The training field was paved with red mud, and there were hundreds of people sparring. It was very lively. Chu Li went to the martial arts hall alone. Li was worried about the moonlight orchid, so he stayed on the island to guard it. After entering the gate of the martial arts hall, a long sandalwood cabinet blocked the way. Behind it sat two beautiful girls, both dressed in light green robes. They smiled and bowed. Chu Li handed over his waist tag. The two young ladies looked at him in surprise. It was rare to see such a young rank 6. They quickly handed over a bronze waist tag. Chu Li glanced at it. There were 4 white clouds carved on the bronze plate. The two girls bowed and gestured for him to go upstairs. Chu Li nodded and walked up the stairs to the 4th floor. 2 middle-aged protectors were guarding the stairs. They glanced at Chu Li's waist tag, but did not stop him. The 2 middle-aged men were only rank 9 protectors, but it was enough. Even rank 9 scribes would not dare to force their way in, much less rank 9 protectors. If they tried to force their way in, they would be kicked out and lose the chance to re-enter. When he stepped onto the 4th floor, it was suddenly deserted. There were fewer people and fewer bookshelves. Unlike the 2nd and 3rd floor, which were densely packed with bookshelves, there were only 5 bookshelves on the 4th floor. Each shelf had about 100 books. The books here were not allowed to be taken out of the building, nor were they allowed to be copied. One could only memorize them and come back if they could not memorize them. The 2nd and 3rd floors were crowded, but there were only 5 people on the 4th floor. It was as deserted as a library. Chu Li flipped through the secret manuals on the shelves. They were all enlightened masteries, heart techniques, and martial arts. Every single one of them would cause a bloodbath. He flipped through them one by one. After half a day, he had memorized half of the bookshelf. He planned to use 5 days to memorize all the secret manuals. He put the last secret manual back, stretched, and strolled out of the martial arts hall. All the secret manuals on the top floor were in his mind. He wanted to go back and choose which one to practice. He left the martial arts hall and crossed the martial arts field, but he was stopped halfway. Zhuo Feiyang was dressed in a sapphire blue robe. He crossed his arms and smiled coldly as he stood in front of Chu Li. Zhao Ying looked worried. Chu Li frowned at him. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Chu Li, what are you doing here? Chu Li glanced at him and ignored him. He continued to walk forward. Zhuo Feiyang was confident that he would be able to avenge himself. He blocked Chu Li's path again. Chu Li, you're scared. I'm scared. Chu Li nodded and said seriously, I'm scared of a shameless person like you. I can't afford to offend you, but I can at least avoid you, right? Let's fight again. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Don't think you're strong. You're just a piece of trash who can't practice martial arts. Chu Li smiled. You think I can fight you just because you want to? He shook his head and sighed. Zhuo Feiyang, if you have the time, go back and practice martial arts. Stop embarrassing yourself and tarnishing the reputation of a genius. Zhuo Feiyang's face darkened. He gritted his teeth. He was no match for Chu Li when it came to words. He took out an invitation and threw it at Chu Li. Catch! The invitation was like a hidden weapon, fast and ruthless. Chu Li caught it and flipped it open. He smiled and shook his head. I don't accept it. Chu Li, you coward. Zhuo Feiyang's face darkened. He laughed coldly. You don't deserve to be a man. Chu Li laughed. Zhuo Feiyang, it's not up to you to decide whether I deserve to be a man or not. All right, remember our bet from last time. You're now my protector. Zhuo Feiyang laughed. Chu Li looked at him calmly. Zhuo Feiyang laughed for a while before he stopped. He pointed at Chu Li and laughed. Chu Li, are you confused? You want me to be your protector? Chu Li nodded. You've lost a bet. You don't want to? Even if I wanted to, the public house's rules wouldn't allow it. Zhuo Feiyang laughed proudly. You want me to be your protector? Do you think you're worthy? I'm rank 7, so you don't want to? Chu Li asked. Zhuo Feiyang's smile disappeared. His face darkened. We'll talk about it when you become rank 6. I do want to, but I didn't say when. Chu Li laughed. So, as long as I'm rank 6, you'll be my protector? If you can become rank 6, of course I want to. Zhuo Feiyang laughed again. But if you want to become rank 6, you'll have to wait another 20 years. By then, I'll be rank 4 or even rank 3. You're not even worthy to be my protector. Chu Li shook his head. Zhuo Feiyang laughed. That's why I said, Chu Li, You're useless. You'll never be able to make a comeback. You can only kneel before me. Ha ha ha. Chu Li looked at him from head to toe. Zhuo Feiyang saw that Chu Li was looking at him strangely. His heart skipped a beat. He became angry. You don't want to? Then accept my challenge. Forget it. Move away. Chu Li shook his head. If you don't move away, I'll punch myself. Zhuo Feiyang glared at him. Chu Li, don't you have any shame? Chu Li smiled. Do you think you have any shame? As he spoke, he walked towards Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang took a step back and scoffed. You coward. I'll let you go this time. Chu Li smiled. He shook his head and walked away. Zhao Ying frowned. Brother Zhuo, let's forget about it. Sister Zhao, you can't sympathize with this guy. He's a wolf. If you have the chance, you should kill him. Otherwise, he'll bite you. Brother Chu Li can't cultivate inner energy. Brother Zhuo, your actions are despicable. Zhao Ying scoffed. Zhuo Feiyang stared at Chu Li's back and shook his head. Zhao Ying scoffed. Brother Zhuo, let's spar. Zhuo Feiyang frowned. Brother Zhuo? Zhao Ying's face turned cold. Zhuo Feiyang was deep in thought. Brother Zhuo, Zhao Ying shouted. She did not like Zhuo Feiyang, but she did not like Chu Li either. Her kind nature made her sympathize with the weak. Chu Li was no match for him. He would only suffer. Zhuo Feiyang raised his head and smiled. He frowned again. I have a feeling that he has a trick up his sleeve. It's not appropriate. Brother Zhuo, I can't stand your narrow-mindedness. You're a real man. Zhao Ying laughed coldly. Zhuo Feiyang shook his head. My instincts are very accurate. They've never been wrong. They've saved my life many times. Zhao Ying turned and left. Chu Li stood at the bow of the boat with his hands behind his back. The lake breeze caressed his face. Zhuo Feiyang wanted to avenge himself. Of course, Chu Li had to fulfill his wish. However, he could not lose face in front of the third lady. This was related to the spirit land. He had to keep a low profile. He had the right to choose the venue. Based on Zhuo Feiyang's personality, he would definitely use the martial arts hall to avenge himself in front of everyone. Chu Li quickly returned to the East Garden. He wrote 2 invitations and asked Li Yu to deliver them. Li Yu looked at the invitations and looked up at him. Chu Li smiled. Thank you, Brother Li. Li Yu said, Brother, what are you playing at this time? Challenging Zhuo Feiyang again? Chu Li smiled and nodded. All right, I bet he'll accept without hesitation. Li Yu shook his head. But are you really confident? I'll have to try. Isn't it too risky? Li Yu was worried. He's ranked 7 now. Winning or losing is normal. It's not a big deal. Sai, you're really ambitious. Chapter 13. Zhuo Feiyang's residence was an independent courtyard, close to a pine forest. There were more than 10 similar courtyards in the pine forest, all of which were occupied by rank 7 protectors. He used to live in a large courtyard. There were more than 10 rooms in the courtyard. Each person occupied one room, and it was very lively. Once he entered rank 7, he changed to a small courtyard. If they were promoted to rank 6 protectors, they would be able to live in a small courtyard by the lake. Pushing open the window, they would be able to enjoy the view of the lake and the gentle breeze. After sparring with Zhao Ying, Zhuo Feiyang returned to his courtyard. He saw Li Yu standing in front of the courtyard, waiting for him with a smile on his face. He stepped forward and snorted, What are you doing here? Li Yu gave a fist salute and smiled. Brother Zhuo, I'm here to deliver the invitation. An invitation with the surname Chu? Zhuo Feiyang frowned. Li Yu handed over the letter of challenge and smiled. Brother Zhuo, can you reply immediately? Zhuo Feiyang opened it and took a look. His face darkened and he chuckled coldly. Chu Li, what a fickle villain. He had challenged Chu Li face to face, but Chu Li had rejected him. As soon as he returned, a challenge letter was sent to him. This was happening too quickly. Was he not toying with him? Then will Brother Zhuo accept the challenge? Of course. Very well then. We shall await your arrival at the East Garden at noon tomorrow. Li Yu said with a smile. I still have to deliver the invitation to Miss Zhao. Farewell. I won't be seeing you out. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed and pushed the door open, ignoring Li Yu. Li Yu shook his head and laughed. He was furious. Why was Zhuo Feiyang so agitated? Zhao Ying stayed in a large courtyard. The courtyard was filled with the sounds of chattering and giggling. Li Yu stood outside the courtyard and called out to Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying received the invitation with a surprised expression. "Brother Li, what is this?" Zhao Ying's almond-shaped eyes widened. Li Yu chuckled. "Brother Chu has issued a dual invitation to Brother Zhua, and Brother Zhua has agreed to it. We shall await your arrival tomorrow. You still want to challenge him?" Zhao Ying cried out in surprise. Li Yu smiled bitterly. "Sigh, to be honest, I don't know what Brother Chu is up to. In any case, Miss Zhao should go and watch the show. Doesn't Senior Brother Chu know that Senior Brother Zhua is already at the 7th rank?" Zhao Ying frowned and said angrily, "Isn't Senior Brother Chu asking for trouble?" All right, I'll be there." Zhao Ying frowned and said worriedly, "Thank you, Miss Zhao." Li Yu cupped his fists and bowed before turning to leave. Zhua Feiyang and Zhao Ying took a boat to the East Garden. Li Yu was waiting under a willow tree by the shore, waving at them from afar. "Where's Chu Li?" Zhua Feiyang looked around cautiously. Zhao Ying's green gown fluttered in the wind. She looked elegant and gentle, but she was a little worried. The East Garden belonged to the third lady, Xiao Qi. Those who were not invited were not allowed to enter. Trespassing on the island without Chu Li and Li Yu's permission would result in serious consequences. If Senior Brother Chu were to take advantage of this, even if he killed Senior Brother Zhua, it wouldn't be a big crime. He was just afraid that Senior Brother Chu would really do something stupid. Zhua Feiyang shouted, "You with the surname Chu, your master Zhua is here. Hurry up and welcome him." As they spoke, the boat approached the shore. Li Yu gave a fist salute and smiled. "Brother Zhua, please don't be impatient. Brother Chu is brewing tea and waiting for your arrival. Please follow me." Zhua Feiyang snorted coldly. He turned around and said, "Ji Jia, you stay here." Bai Ji Jia nodded solemnly. "I understand, master." Zhua Feiyang and Zhao Ying leaped onto the shore and followed Li Yu inside. Soon, they arrived at their courtyard. Zhua Feiyang's eyes were bright as he looked around cautiously. Zhao Ying looked around curiously. The East Garden lived up to its name. The flowers bloomed like a brocade. It was a beautiful sight. Inside the courtyard, Chu Li sat by the stone table in a daze. There were 4 cups of hot tea on the table. Steam curled up from the table, and the fragrance of the tea wafted in the air. He was currently cultivating the infinite azure sea. It was an inner energy heart technique that he had carefully selected. It was fierce and overbearing, like a giant wave sweeping through the sky. With every circulation, it would stack up to a maximum of 9 layers, allowing him to unleash 9 times his strength. Such a powerful technique had a fatal weakness. Before it could harm the enemy, it would harm the user first. It would destroy his meridians in an instant. He dared to choose this technique for 2 reasons. Firstly, the minute pulse cleansing technique was a top-notch technique for tempering one's meridians. Secondly, the infinite azure sea had a strong regenerative ability. He had mastered the minute pulse cleansing technique and leveled up the scripture of life and death. His meridians were much stronger than normal people. The infinite azure sea could unleash his full potential. He had also chosen the eternity blade and the flying dagger technique. It allowed him to gather all his inner energy into a single blade. It could decide life and death, whether his opponent or himself would die. When the infinite azure sea and the eternity blade were combined, he could unleash several times his own strength. When he heard the footsteps, his inner energy dissipated and his eyes dimmed. There was no sign of spiritual energy leaking out. He was no different from a person who had never cultivated inner energy heart techniques. The 3 of them entered the courtyard. Chu Li stood up and closed fist saluted. He smiled. "Sister Zhao, your presence brings light to my humble abode. Please, have a seat and have a taste of Brother Li's tea." Zhua Feiyang scoffed. "Chu Li, did you put something in your tea?" Chu Li shook his head and laughed. "You think I'm as despicable as you. Chu Li, don't waste your breath. Hurry up and do it." Zhua Feiyang did not want to argue with him. There was no way he could win. Chu Li passed the teacup to Zhao Ying. "Zhua Feiyang, why don't we make another bet? Cut the crap. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, then admit defeat. Zhuo Feiyong pouted. You only know how to play dirty tricks. Chu Li tilted his head and laughed. You've learned your lesson. Zhuo Feiyong laughed coldly. Chu Li, you don't have any confidence. Are you afraid now? Oh, if you really dare to fight, why do you have to beat around the bush? That's true. Zhuo Feiyong scoffed. Don't be like that. Just admit defeat. You don't want me to beat you up later. Hee hee. Chu Li, as long as you promise me one thing, I won't make things difficult for you. What is it? Cancel the bet. Chu Li, don't be so stubborn. If we really fight, I'll cripple you. You were the one who challenged me. Zhuo Feiyong gritted his teeth and glared at him. Chu Li pulled out his sword from the table and stood in the middle of the courtyard. Come at me then. It's quite lively here. A crisp laughter rang out. Zhuo Feiyong turned his head and his expression changed. He quickly closed fist, saluted, and bowed respectfully. Chief Su, Chu Li, Zhao Ying, and Liu bowed as well. Su Ru stood at the entrance of the courtyard. Her apricot gown fluttered in the wind. Her smile lit up the courtyard. What are you doing? Su Ru asked with a smile as she looked at Zhuo Feiyong. Zhuo Feiyong looked at Chu Li and said respectfully, Chief, Chu Li has issued me a challenge. I have no choice but to accept it. A challenge? Chu Li issued you a challenge? Su Ru's eyes widened. Yes. Zhuo Feiyong nodded. I dare not lie to Chief Su. Chu Li, are you confused? Chief, I want to witness the glory of a genius. You're a scribe. I like to practice martial arts. You don't have any inner energy. Why are you challenging me? You're asking for trouble. It's fine if I lose. Zhuo Feiyong looked at Chu Li and stole a glance at Su Ru. Su Ru was so beautiful that he did not dare to look at her directly. However, he could tell that she was more worried about Chu Li. She was even more jealous and angry. He roared in his heart, Cripple him. I must cripple him. No wonder Chu Li dared to challenge him. He had a protective talisman. He was even more certain that he would win. He sneered at Chu Li and turned to Su Ru. Chief Su, swords and spears have no eyes. It's inevitable that I will lose control when I fight. Chu Li said, If you can really kill me, then you have the ability. Chief will not pursue this matter. Nonsense. Su Ru's face darkened. Zhuo Feiyong quickly said, Then forget it. This kind of competition is meaningless. It's not the same as a real fight. Su Ru sided with Chu Li. If they really fought, it would not end well. Chu Li smiled. Are you afraid, Zhuo Feiyong? Zhuo Feiyong was furious. What a joke. Chief, please hold the line. Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and smiled at Su Ru. Su Ru rolled her eyes at him and said, I can't be bothered with your business. Zhuo Feiyong, come at me. Don't look for excuses when you lose. Take this. Zhuo Feiyong roared. He turned his jealousy and hatred into a fist of anger. Like a meteor, he rushed towards Chu Li. Chu Li took a step back and raised the tip of his sword. Zhuo Feiyong twisted his body to avoid the sword and threw out his left fist. Chu Li moved the tip of his sword horizontally and waited for the fist to land. Zhuo Feiyong could only move his fists and change his moves. Suddenly, he lost his advantage. Chu Li's sword moved first, forcing Zhuo Feiyong to change his moves. After more than 10 moves, Zhuo Feiyong was so frustrated that he wanted to scream. He even had the crazy thought of punching Chu Li. Su Ru squinted her eyes. She had heard that Chu Li's swordsmanship was good, but she did not expect it to be this good. Zhuo Feiyong's fists were like a gust of wind. His reflexes were faster than a normal person's. Chu Li did not have inner energy, but he relied on his swordsmanship to suppress Zhuo Feiyong. He was a genius in swordsmanship. If he cultivated inner energy, his speed and strength would increase tremendously. Based on her estimation, he could even compete with a rank 6 protector. Such a genius could not practice martial arts. What a pity! What a pity! She could not help but shake her head. Zhuo Feiyong suppressed his urge to scream. He channeled all his energy, and his fists became faster and faster. He suddenly screamed in pain. His body slowed down. The tip of Chu Li's sword stopped right in front of his throat. Zhuo Feiyong's neck stiffened. His face darkened as he stared at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and sheathed his sword. Zhuo Feiyang, you've lost. You? Zhuo Feiyang stared at him. If you're not satisfied, shall we continue? Again, Chu Li smiled. You're shameless. I was careless. Do you dare to come again? Zhuo Feiyang roared. Su Ru frowned. Zhao Ying quickly said, Brother Zhuo, but Zhuo Feiyang could not take this lying down. He worked hard and isolated himself to cultivate. Finally, he passed the 3rd floor and became a rank 7 protector. Finally, he could hold his head high and teach Chu Li a lesson. He did not expect Chu Li to be so difficult to deal with. Even a rank 7 protector could not defeat him. He felt that Chu Li must have consumed some kind of pill that stimulated his potential. Otherwise, he would not have been so fast. How could he be so fast if he had not cultivated inner energy? As long as he could endure the effects of the pill, Chu Li would return to his original form and lose to him. Chu Li said, If you're not satisfied, then come again. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. Let's take a breather first. You don't have any inner energy. If you lose, you'll say that I bullied you and refuse to admit it. I'm not that shameless. Zhuo Feiyang thickened his face and said to Su Ru, Chief Su, please excuse me. Su Ru said, Zhuo Feiyang, what happened today must be kept a secret. Do not tell anyone. Yes. Zhuo Feiyang did not understand, but did not ask. Su Ru looked at Zhuo Feiyang. You're able to reach rank 7 at such a young age. That's rare. I'm ashamed. Zhuo Feiyang smiled bitterly. Su Ru said, winning or losing is nothing. You're talented and will become stronger. You don't have to worry about winning or losing. Yes. Zhuo Feiyang nodded obediently. Su Ru stopped talking to him and turned to chat with Zhao Ying. There were quite a number of female protectors in the public house. Most of them were in the public house to protect the ladies. Even if they went out for missions, it was usually less dangerous. Chapter 14. 2 hours later, Zhuo Feiyang challenged again. However, as soon as he made his move, he was immediately stabbed. His face turned pale. The sword pierced his shoulder, so he could not attack again. He gritted his teeth, his face pale. Without a word, he turned around and left. He did not even care about Su Ru and Zhao Ying. He held his shoulder and left. Before Zhao Ying boarded the boat, she glared at Chu Li. She did not expect Chu Li to be so cunning. She was also tricked and worried. Chu Li smiled apologetically. As he watched the boat disappear, he turned around and saw Su Ru's smiling eyes. Su Ru smiled. Chu Li, you like Zhao Ying, right? Chu Li smiled. Su Ru smiled. Looks like Zhuo Feiyang likes her too. If the two of you stand together, Zhuo Feiyang will have an advantage. Chu Li did not say anything. Su Ru smiled at him. Zhao Ying seems to be quite popular. She is beautiful, gentle, and kind. Which man would not like her? Chu Li sighed. He felt melancholy. Zhao Ying did not like him. Do you think you have a chance? Of course. I think it's hard. Su Ru smiled. Can you beat Zhuo Feiyang? Chu Li frowned. Not only was Zhuo Feiyang a prodigy, but he was also very handsome. He was more likable to women than he was. He was not lying to himself, but he knew that he was no match for Zhuo Feiyang. Plus, women liked men like Zhuo Feiyang, who was full of masculinity and charisma. Fortunately, Zhao Ying was not an ordinary woman. She was kind and sympathized with the weak. Now, that Zhuo Feiyang was the weak one. Would she sympathize with him? That was a problem. Are you disappointed? Su Ru said with a smile, her bright eyes sizing him up. Chu Li shook his head. I will not give up. That's right. Su Ru smiled. Giving up is not like you. Do you need my help? Chu Li raised his eyebrows and looked at her. Su Ru smiled. You don't believe that I can help? Thank you, Chief. Chu Li closed fist saluted. Please help me. When it was time to ask for help, he didn't hesitate to ask for help. If he didn't have the courage to throw caution to the wind, how could he get a woman? Su Ru giggled and shook her head after laughing for a while. You men, really? Chu Li smiled embarrassedly. I can't just watch the woman I like get snatched away by another man, can I? Besides, Zhuo Feiyang is not a good partner. I can't just watch Sister Zhao jump into the fire pit. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Suru rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. You men think that you're the only one who's good enough for a beauty. You shouldn't be with other men. Chuli chuckled. Suru scoffed. All right, I won't joke with you anymore. I'm here for serious business. Yes. Chuli's expression turned serious. Suru scanned her surroundings. Li was not around. Only the two of them were standing by the lake. The gentle breeze was refreshing, and the lake was empty and quiet. Can you plant a lot of deity's beard? If you're not afraid of destroying the land, no problem. That's good. This time, we need a large number of deity's beard. Plant them as soon as possible. How much? At least 20 acres. 20 acres? Chuli frowned at her. This 20 acres will be wasted. It'll take at least 5 years to recover. Yes, it's best to plant them outside the public house. The more fertile the land, the better. That's exactly what I was thinking. Suru nodded. This must be kept a secret. Chuli nodded slowly. Looking at Suru's expression, it was obvious that this matter could not be made public. There's a valley at the 100,000 hills. It's very secretive. Go there and plant them. The land there is very fertile. Yes. Chuli nodded without hesitation. This matter must be kept a secret. We cannot attract any attention. Suru shook her head. But there can't be any mistakes. That's why I've decided to assign you a protector. One more person means one more risk. Chuli said, I'll go by myself. What if something happens along the way? Suru rolled her eyes at him. Can you handle it? Chuli raised his eyebrows and smiled. He looked at the direction where the boat disappeared. Suru scoffed. All right, let Zhaoying follow you. Thank you, Chief. Chuli was overjoyed. He closed fists saluted. This is what you want. But if you mess up, you'll be demoted by 2 ranks. Zhaoying will also be demoted to a servant. Yes, you know what to do if there's trouble outside, right? Don't worry, Chief. We won't expose our identities. You're smart. Suru nodded in satisfaction. Handing this matter over to Chu Li was also a test to see if he could handle it. Early in the morning, at the south gate of the public house, under the bright sunshine, 2 bronze lions seemed to have come alive. They could pounce on people at any time. Zhaoying was dressed in a light green gown. She was leading a red horse. She stood quietly beside one of the lions, her bright eyes staring at the door. It was still early. There was almost no one coming in or out of the door. She frowned from time to time. She was curious about the mission this time. When she received the mission was to escort someone. It was a secret mission. She was not allowed to tell anyone about it. She did not even mention who the person was. She was only asked to wait at the south gate in the morning. Someone would come looking for her. She was very curious and excited. It was rare for her to have an outside mission. She did not know how many people would be on this mission and who they would be escorting. It could be a powerful person. Only these people would be secretive about their whereabouts, afraid that others would know. The public house was powerful and illustrious. Their reputation was known throughout the world. But this reputation was built on the heads of many people. They had many enemies. Those people in the martial arts world were hot-blooded. They would risk their lives for revenge. Once their whereabouts were exposed, they might be surrounded by a group of evil wolves. She was only a rank 9 protector. It was her first time participating in such a secret mission. She was inexplicably excited. Her eyes were shining. After waiting for a while, she did not feel impatient at all. She suddenly saw Chu Li. She quickly waved her hand, signaling Chu Li not to come over. He should leave quickly. There was no need to greet her. Although she was curious why Chu Li was leading a horse as if he was leaving the public house, she could not care less. She was focused on the person who was going to appear. She did not want to miss that person or leave a bad impression. Chu Li led a red horse and slowly walked in front of Zhaoying. Zhaoying's bright eyes quickly scanned the surroundings and said in a low voice, Senior Brother Chu, what are you doing? Chu Li smiled. Sister Zhaoying, who are you waiting for? I'm not waiting for anyone. Zhaoying quickly said. This mission was confidential and could not be told to anyone. She kept that in mind. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. You're waiting for me, aren't you? Nonsense. I'm not waiting for anyone. Zhaoying scoffed and waved her hand. Brother Chu, if you have something to say, We could talk about it another day. Hurry up and do what you need to do. I'll leave immediately. Chu Li chuckled. Zhao Ying frowned and stared at him. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Sister Zhao Ying, you were waiting for me. Brother Chu. Zhao Ying stamped her feet and pouted. Her face was red. Chu Li said, your mission this time is to escort me. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Chu Li nodded. Yes, it's to escort me. It's a confidential mission. It's really you? Zhao Ying blinked and pointed at him in surprise. Chu Li smiled. Your mission document has the word Li on it, right? Zhao Ying frowned and looked at him. Chu Li said, you have the public house's waist tag, right? Zhao Ying nodded. I can't bring it with me. Put it back. I can't bring anything that can identify me. It's really you? Zhao Ying asked disappointedly. Chu Li laughed. Hurry up. We need to depart soon. Are there any other protectors? No, only you. Your mission is important. Why me? I'll explain to you on the way. Hurry up. Chu Li waved his hand. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. She turned around and walked into the public house. She used her light body technique and quickly disappeared. After a while, she hurriedly came back and scoffed. Let's go. The two of them got on their horses and walked side by side. The south gate of the public house was the north gate of Chongming Town. The two of them walked slowly in Chongming Town. Their surroundings were crowded with people and carriages. The whole town was like a lively morning market. It was livelier than usual. Why am I the only one? We don't attract attention. We look like a couple. We won't attract attention. Who's a couple with you? Hee. I'm just a rank 9 protector. My martial arts is not good enough. Zhao Ying was a little embarrassed. This was her first time on a secret mission. The reward for a secret mission was 3 times that of a normal mission. Not everyone could accept this mission. Logically speaking, she was not qualified to accept this kind of secret mission. It's best not to use martial arts. Chu Li sat on the horse and rode it lazily. What if it's dangerous? There's only one thing to do. Run. Then what do you want me to do? Dress up as a couple. Brother Chu. Zhao Ying stared at him unhappily. Sister Zhao Ying, you don't want to accept this mission? Chu Li smiled. If you really don't want to accept it, you can find someone else. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. Who said I don't want to accept it? Chu Li said, you won't hate me, right? Why would I hate you? I defeated Zhuo Feiyang. You don't have a heart? What are you talking about? Who doesn't have a heart? Zhao Ying pouted. It's just a competition. Zhuo Feiyang is a genius in martial arts. He'll surpass you sooner or later. Brother Chu, it's not good for you to be so full of yourself. Who said Zhuo Feiyang could surpass me? Zhao Ying pouted. She did not want to expose Chu Li's scars. It was too pitiful that he could not cultivate the heart technique of inner energy before he built his foundation. Chu Li smiled. Sister Zhao Ying likes Zhuo Feiyang a lot, right? Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him, but did not say anything. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Zhuo Feiyang has such a cute face. Sigh. I didn't expect Sister Zhao Ying to judge a book by its cover. Brother Chu, don't talk nonsense. Who's judging a book by its cover? I don't like Zhuo Feiyang either. Zhao Ying snapped. Anyone can see that you like Zhuo Feiyang. Nonsense. Zhao Ying pouted. I'm just learning from Zhuo Feiyang so that I can improve my martial arts as soon as possible. You might as well learn from me. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. He only immerses himself in cultivation and doesn't read any books. His knowledge of martial arts is far from mine. Brother Chu, you need to practice martial arts. It's useless to just read books. Zhao Ying disagreed. Chu Li shook his head. Sister Zhao Ying, you're wrong. As they spoke, they rode their horses through the bustling crowd, attracting people's attention. Although the man was not handsome, he had an imposing aura and the woman was beautiful. They were a good match. Chu Li was not in a hurry. He sat on the horse and enjoyed the view. He was enjoying the rich atmosphere of life. It had been a long time since he had such a relaxed state of mind. Ever since he obtained the scripture of life and death and built his foundation, his heart was no longer oppressed. Zhao Ying scoffed. Brother Chu, how am I wrong? Chu Li said, you guys think that your martial arts is unique. You don't know that you're just repeating the old path of your predecessors. There are many cultivation notes in the martial arts hall. They record your own cultivation experiences. You guys don't read them and just fumble around on your own. He shook his head and sighed. This is a waste of time. It's better to fumble around on your own. Zhao Ying scoffed. Chu Li shook his head. According to what you've said, I don't need a master. I just need to slowly practice on my own. I'm not talking to you. Zhao Ying was speechless. Chu Li said, Sister Zhao Ying, you're practicing the swallow sword technique, right? That's right. Show me when you have time. Brother Chu, you know the swallow sword technique? I know a little. I've read a few cultivation notes. All right. Zhao Ying scoffed. She wanted to see if he was bluffing. Chapter 15. The two of them left the town and galloped on their horses. They traveled for half a day and stopped at a forest to rest at noon. Chu Li was calm. He looked like he had no inner energy, but the essence of the plants kept nourishing his body and eliminating fatigue. Plus, he had a strong spiritual force, so he did not feel tired at all. Zhao Ying had inner energy to protect her body, so she did not feel tired. The key was to rest and recover the horses. The two horses were drenched in sweat after running for half a day. It was not suitable to travel under such a strong sun. The two of them sat in a gazebo in the forest. The gazebo was mottled and weathered. It was built by the imperial court for pedestrians to rest. Brother Chu, let me show you the swallow blade technique. Zhao Ying entered the gazebo and quickly unsheathed her sword. Please teach me. Chu Li sat down and nodded. Then let's see. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him and went to the center of the gazebo. Her sword technique filled the entire gazebo. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Zhao Ying sheathed her sword and looked at him. Brother Chu? Chu Li seemed to be in a daze, but he was actually replaying her moves in his mind. He dissected them one by one. After this, he remembered everything and could practice it with ease. Brother Chu? Zhao Ying shouted. Seeing Chu Li in a daze, she could not help but get angry. Was her sword technique so bad that it was not worth his attention? Instead, he was thinking about something else. Chu Li came back to his senses and smiled. Brother Chu, where did I go wrong? Zhao Ying scoffed. Chu Li stood up and extended his hand. Zhao Ying passed the sword to him. Chu Li felt the warmth and a faint fragrance. He twirled the sword. Sister Zhao, I feel that you have not grasped the swallow blade technique. You are still wandering outside the door. Then please teach me, Brother Chu. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes and scoffed. What big tone. She had practiced the swallow blade technique for a year and was very familiar with it. Chu Li gently waved his sword, which was incredibly fast. Then he slowed down for a moment before he swung his sword again. His movements were smooth and natural, as if he was a light swallow skimming across a lake. Sometimes he skimmed across the surface of the lake, and sometimes he soared into the sky. He was carefree and leisurely, as if he could control his speed at will. Zhao Ying's bright eyes stared at the sword without blinking. She was very familiar with the swallow blade technique. When she saw Chu Li's sword technique, her eyes suddenly lit up as if she had been enlightened. Chu Li sheathed his sword and smiled. Do you understand now? Rhythm, Zhao Ying muttered to herself. Chu Li smiled and said, You have good comprehension. Rhythm, this is the essence of the swallow blade technique. You can't just blindly be fast. Swallows fly fast, but blindly being fast is not enough. You need to slow down to be faster. Zhao Ying looked at him with a frown. Senior Brother Chu, have you also practiced the flying swallow sword style? Chu Li shook his head. I'm cultivating the delusion split. The delusion split swordsmanship that Senior Brother Zhuo practiced. Chu Li smiled and said, Yes, I heard that he was cultivating this, so I want to cultivate it. It's a very high level to break through all illusions and go straight to the heart. Senior Brother Chu, you're really bad. Zhao Ying scoffed. Chu Li laughed and passed the sword to her. Zhao Ying took it and practiced it twice. Her pretty face lit up, and she became more and more excited. She did not expect Chu Li to improve her swordsmanship to a whole new level. He was right. She had not even touched the door of the swallow blade technique before. This was the real swallow blade technique. It was a pity that she had sparred with Senior Brother Joie for a long time. Senior Brother Joie did not see this, and she did not understand it either. Otherwise, she could have tried to break through to rank 8. With the Swallow Blade technique at this level, there was hope for her to break through rank 8. Chuli looked around to see if there were any spirit herbs. The spiritual energy of every tree had blended with him. He did not miss anything within 100 meters. Suddenly, his eyebrows twitched. He got up and walked out of the pagoda. He came in front of a small blade of grass. The grass was in a clump of grass. It looked no different from the usual weeds, inconspicuous. However, if one were to look closely, they would notice that it was greener and more symmetrical. It seemed to have a unique beauty to it. Chuli sighed. His luck was really coming. What is this? A fragrance wafted over. Zhao incuriously went closer to take a look. Torso refiner, Chuli said and extended his hand. Let me borrow your sword. Zhao Ying passed the sword over. The blade flashed, and the blade of grass was picked out. It fell into Chu Li's hand along with its long roots. He looked carefully and smiled. He returned the sword. Zhao Ying took out a white silk handkerchief to wipe the sword. What's the use of this? It can strengthen the meridians. Chuli shook his head and sighed. It's something that can only be found by chance. With this, the time needed to build a foundation will be greatly reduced. Really? Zhao Ying stopped wiping the sword. She was surprised. Can it really help build a foundation? If that was the case, then the value of the torso refiner was too high. Chuli said, I'll need to mix another medicine. If you eat this, will you be able to build a foundation, Senior Chu? Chuli smiled and did not say anything. I didn't expect this little thing to be so magical. Zhao Ying curiously looked at the blade of grass. It was slender, but its roots were thick and long. Chuli smiled. I'll split it in half when we meet. I'll give you one when it's refined into medicine. I don't want it. Zhao Ying quickly waved her hand. It can strengthen the meridians and increase the speed of cultivation. Is it really that magical? If your meridians are strengthened, will your cultivation speed be faster? Of course. Zhao Ying nodded. Inner energy was overbearing and the meridians had a limit. Usually, after a certain number of times, they had to stop and let the meridians rest. Otherwise, they would collapse and be injured. If the meridians were strengthened, then the cultivation time could be increased. Of course, the advancement would be faster. Chuli smiled. Then you still don't want it? Zhao Ying hesitated for a moment. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. No. Chuli laughed and did not say anything else. He wrapped it up and put it in his arms. He used spiritual energy to nourish it so that it would not lose its vitality and the medicine's effect would be stronger. Let's go in and take a look when we come across a town. There should be land dragon grass. Okay. The two of them quickly got up. In the evening, they rode into a small town of clouds. First, they found a friend's inn and asked for a small courtyard. Then, Chuli asked Zhao Ying to rest while he went to the medicine shop in town to see if he could find the earth dragon grass. Zhao Ying was curious and insisted on following him. Thus, the two of them changed into a fresh set of clothes and strolled out of the friend's arrival inn. The sun was setting and the town was covered in a layer of light. Walking in the bustling crowd, the two of them were relaxed. Zhao Ying looked around curiously. None of her previous missions were so relaxing. She would stop from time to time to look at the items on the stalls. Chuli saw that she liked it, so he bought it. In a short while, he had bought 2 big bags of things. Brother Chu, don't buy it. Your salary. You don't know what rank I am? Not rank 9, Zhao Ying asked curiously. Chuli made a 6 sign with his fingers and smiled. No way. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Chuli smiled. You'll know when we get back to the public house. Ow! Zhao Ying was in disbelief. Her watery eyes looked at his face. It's just a promotion. It's not that strange, is it? Chuli smiled. Watch the road. He suddenly tugged at her left arm and dodged the collision of the 2 children who were running and laughing, not caring if they would bump into anyone. Zhao Ying's body stiffened. She quickly pulled her arm away from his hand and stared at him with a red face. Chuli retracted his hand. Let's go to the medicine shop first. Okay. Zhao Ying nodded. The two of them went straight to a big medicine shop. Chuli wanted the land dragon grass. This medicine shop really did have the land dragon grass. It was expensive. Chu Li bought one without hesitation and returned to the courtyard of the inn with Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying stayed in the west wing, while Chu Li stayed in the master bedroom. Zhao Ying was in the west wing playing with the small items she bought. She smiled from time to time. Chu Li was in the main hall, playing with 2 herbs. He mixed them together and added a spirit herb. He boiled it into juice and mixed it with honey to make 4 honey pills. The next morning, Zhao Ying was practicing her swordsmanship. Her swallow sword technique was light and graceful. Chu Li pushed the door open and stretched. He breathed in the fresh air and relaxed his lungs. Zhao Ying was dressed in a turquoise outfit, which accentuated her graceful figure, making her look valiant and formidable. Chu Li sat by the stone table. After a quarter of an hour, Zhao Ying sheathed her sword. Her cheeks were rosy and delicate. "Brother Chu Li, did you sleep well?" She sheathed her sword. "It was all right." Chu Li took out a porcelain bottle and threw it to Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying quickly took it and was surprised. "You made it." Chu Li nodded. "There are 4 pills in total. You take half, and I'll take half. Take it as soon as possible to prevent the medicine from losing its effect." "I don't want it." Zhao Ying shook her head and handed the bottle over. Chu Li did not take it. "I told you to take it. Just take it." "I don't want it," Zhao Ying said firmly. "You need it the most." Not being able to cultivate inner energy was the source of his pain. This medicine could help him. How could he be greedy? Chu Li sighed helplessly and took it. He opened the stopper and poured out 2 dark green pills. They were the size of a pinky. He then extended his hand. Zhao Ying instantly froze. Her acupuncture point was sealed. She widened her eyes in shock and opened her cherry mouth. Chu Li put the 2 pills in her mouth and patted the back of her neck. Then he stepped back. Zhao Ying regained her mobility. She coughed a few times and tried to cough it out. However, it was useless. The pills melted as soon as they entered her mouth. They turned into 2 fragrant scents that flowed through her body. In the blink of an eye, they had turned into medicine. "Brother Chu Li," Zhao Ying was furious. She glared at him. Chu Li clapped his hands and smiled. "All right, it's done." Zhao Ying glared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li said, "Keep staring and your eyeballs will fall out." "You're too much," Zhao Ying said angrily. Chu Li smiled. "All right, hurry up and cultivate. Don't waste the medicine." Zhao Ying glared at him and turned to go back into the house. Chu Li smiled and went back into the house to cultivate the medicine. This was an ancient formula, body tempering powder. It was later lost because of the difficulty of finding the tendon refinement grass. The tendon refinement grass was a mutation of wild grass. It was what people called genetic mutation in the future. It could not be planted or propagated. It was no different from wild grass. Almost no one could recognize it. Chu Li had the life and death scripture. He was able to sense spiritual energy and found this tendon refinement grass. He believed that there were many more tendon refinement grass in this world. Chapter 16. Chu Li finished refining the medicine and pushed the door open. The sun was shining brightly. It had been 2 hours. The door to the west room opened as well. Zhao Ying stepped out and rolled her eyes at Chu Li. "Chu Li, thank you." She could clearly feel the changes in her body. Her meridians had become stronger. Her inner energy was flowing more smoothly and faster. Her martial arts had improved a lot. She would definitely be able to pass the rank 8 exam when she returned. Chu Li smiled. "Let's eat first before we continue our journey." "Okay." Zhao Ying nodded. The waiter brought breakfast. The 2 ate at the stone table in the courtyard and continued their journey. Once they were out of town, they sped up their horses. There were not many people on the main road. Their horses galloped so fast that it did not stop them from talking. Chu Li told her some interesting anecdotes and quickly dispelled Zhao Ying's resentment. They continued to chat and laugh. Chu Li had a stomach full of books, so it was easy for him to recite all the anecdotes of the martial arts world. Zhao Ying listened to him with great interest, completely forgetting herself. In the middle of the morning, Chu Li suddenly stopped his horse. Zhao Ying quickly reined in her horse and turned around. Chuli, what's wrong? Chuli pointed at a mountain range in the distance. This is the Raging Tiger Mountain. What's wrong with the Raging Tiger Mountain? Zhao Ying looked at the mountain range. There's a raging tiger troop in the Raging Tiger Mountain. Chuli frowned. It's a strong troop. They rob passersby. Zhao Ying was shocked. We'll meet one. We have to be careful. What should we do? Do we take a detour? This is the only way. Then we'll go through it. Zhao Ying pressed on her sword. We'll just fight. Her martial arts had suddenly increased, and her heart was already restless. She wanted to experience how strong she was, so she was fearless. Chuli shook his head. The Raging Tiger troop has an innate master. Zhao Ying's expression changed. She let go of her sword. They were no match for an innate master. An innate master could release their inner energy and transfer it through objects. No matter how strong she was, she had no chance of winning. Even Chuli could not beat an innate master, no matter how good his swordsmanship was. Be careful. Let's go. Are we really going? Are we going back? Oh, all right then. Chuli rode his horse slowly and stepped onto the Raging Tiger Mountain. The forest on both sides of the mountain was dense, and behind the forest was a towering mountain peak. The terrain was dangerous, as if one man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. It was the best place to build a stronghold. Chuli said as he walked, Junior Sister Zhao, when we fight later, don't show any mercy. Zhao Ying hesitated. Chuli said, if we can't kill him, we'll attract the attention of an innate master, and we'll be in big trouble. All right. Zhao Ying nodded helplessly. After walking for a quarter of an hour, Chuli frowned and turned to give Zhao Ying a look. Zhao Ying nodded and understood what he meant. There was an ambush ahead. Chuli reined in his horse and gave a fist salute. My friend, please show yourself. Zhao Ying drew her sword, ready to strike at any moment. Huh! A loud laughter suddenly rang out. The branches swayed, and 6 burly men came out of the forest, standing 10 meters away from them. Their bald heads shone brightly under the sunlight. Heroes, Chuli gave a fist salute. My wife and I have nothing on us. We don't have any money. The gazes of the 6 burly men all fell on Zhao Ying's body. Their gazes wandered back and forth between her delicate face and curvaceous body. Their gazes became more and more fervent, wishing that they could immediately strip off her clothes and do it on the spot. Chuli frowned and crossed his horse to block their gazes. He hid Zhao Ying behind him. Zhao Ying frowned and her face darkened. Their burning gazes seemed to penetrate through her clothes, and she felt uncomfortable. Boy, be sensible and give us the beauty. We'll spare your life. The leader of the burly men looked at him and scoffed. You don't deserve to have a lady like her. Chuli frowned. Everyone will rob you of your wealth, but not your beauty. This is the rule of the martial arts world. Rule? The burly man laughed. Bullsh * T rules. In our Raging Tiger Mountain, the Raging Tiger Troop is the rule. Chuli drew his sword. Then there's nothing more to say. I'll have a taste of your skills. Boy, you better think carefully. Once you draw your sword, we won't show any mercy. We'll kill you and have some fun with the lady before we kill her. The burly man looked at Chuli like a cat toying with a mouse. If you don't draw your sword and let the lady be the wife of the troop's leader, you'll be spared. Boy, if you dare to draw your sword, we won't kill you. We'll break your limbs and pull out your tongue. Then we'll have fun with the lady in front of you. Another burly man laughed. Chuli's gaze turned cold. They had played this game of cat and mouse many times. They worked well together and harmed many people. Every one of them deserved to die 100 times. Back. Diao Huang? Kai Fei #AO Huang? Smelling hot, boy. The leader of the burly men sneered. Later, you'll be watching us serve your lady. I'm impressed that you could still be so stubborn. Go. Zhao Ying drew her sword and stood in front of Chuli. She was a protector. How could she let Chuli charge in front of her? Chuli did not push her away. One of the burly men strode forward. The long knife in his hand flashed with a cold light. The smell of blood was faintly discernible. This knife had killed many people. Hee hee, little lady, I'll love you dearly. He laughed lewdly and slashed down with his knife. The knife was like a silver waterfall, cold and dense. Sister, don't panic, Chu Li said gently. He took a step forward, ready to help Zhao Ying at any time. Zhao Ying calmed down. Chu Li's voice had a strange power. She calmed down and calmed down. She raised the tip of her sword and waved it lightly. Facing the fierce knife, she was like a swallow facing the wind. She swept past it and looked for an opening to attack. Ding! The knife and the sword clashed. Zhao Ying's long sword spun. The burly man groaned. His shoulder was hit, and the long knife fell to the ground. She put away her sword and stood still. Her eyes were shining. This beautiful sword gave her confidence. The improved swallow sword technique was indeed powerful. This beautiful feeling of flying like a swallow was really wonderful. It gave her the courage to face any challenge. The little lady has some tricks up her sleeve. The burly man in front stepped forward to guard against Chu Li and Zhao Ying's pursuit. He waited for his companions to retreat before sneering. I underestimated you. Interesting. Zhao Ying's confidence was boosted. Her eyes sharpened and she scoffed. A bunch of shameless people. Die. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. She talked big, but she was still soft-hearted. If it was him, that guy just now would have been dead. I'm here to ask for advice from the little lady. Another burly man stood up. He held a long knife and stared greedily at her curvaceous body. He laughed. Don't worry, little lady. I won't hurt you. Zhao Ying scoffed. Watch my sword. Her sword flew towards the burly man. The man raised his long knife and attacked continuously. He was taking a soft approach. It was completely different from his previous ferocious attacks. It was like a spider's web, coiling around and trying to entangle the swallow. Zhao Ying's sword was light and agile. It was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. In the blink of an eye, she had exchanged more than 20 moves with the burly man. Chu Li said gently, Sister, don't rush. Zhao Ying nodded slightly. Her impatient heart calmed down. She patiently dealt with the man, looking for his weakness. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She finally found the man's weakness. Her sword suddenly sped up. The burly man groaned. His long knife fell to the ground, and he quickly retreated. Chu Li suddenly stepped forward. With a flash of his sword, the burly man fell to the ground with his hand on his throat. Blood spurted out like a fountain. He groaned and stared at Chu Li with hatred. Chu Li gently shook his long sword to shake off the blood. He glanced at the opposite side. Do you still want to go? You'll die. The burly man in front stared at Chu Li. He gritted his teeth and said slowly, You'll be cut into pieces. The same goes for the little lady. When you're done playing, we'll cut you piece by piece. If I were you, I'd cut my own throat as soon as possible. Chu Li looked up and laughed. A motley crew. How arrogant. Chapter 17. The men immediately surrounded him, all holding long knives. The cold gleam reflected off their bald heads and formed a great deterrent. Zhao Ying was confident, but she was still uncertain in the face of a siege. She whispered, Brother, let's run. Chu Li shook his head. Kill them first. If these scums were left alive, many people would be harmed. All right. Zhao Ying nodded lightly. She also felt that these people deserved to die. If her martial arts were weak, she would have been humiliated by them. Just thinking about it made her skin crawl. She did not even dare to think about it. The blade flashed, and 4 knives were swung at him. Chu Li snorted. His sword flashed and instantly pierced through the wrists of 2 men. He then turned and stabbed at the last man. Zhao Ying only needed to focus on one. Ah. They screamed almost at the same time. The wrists of the 3 men were pierced, and their long knives fell to the ground. Zhao Ying and the last man were entangled in a fight. The sword and the knife were entangled. This man's knife technique was sharp and gentle. It was not inferior to Zhao Ying's swallow sword technique. Chu Li was not in a hurry to help and let Zhao Ying gain some experience. He stabbed with his long sword, and the 3 men's throats were pierced. They spat out blood and twitched. They stared at Chu Li viciously. They did not show any fear, even in death. Chu Li gently shook his long sword and pulled it out. He stood at the side and watched. Sister, a long night is fraught with trouble. Let's finish him. Good, Zhao Ying shouted, and her sword became more and more graceful. It was extraordinarily agile, and it was impossible to defend against it. I'm going to drag one of you down with me. The burly man roared in anger. His body suddenly swelled up, and his face turned purple. Ignoring Zhao Ying's sword, he took a hit on his shoulder and slashed out with his saber. This was a move that would injure both sides. Zhao Ying snorted and dodged. Chuli knew something was wrong. He stabbed the man right in the heart. The man's eyes widened, and he looked down at the sword pointing at him. Blood gushed out of his mouth. He tilted his head and fell to the ground. Chuli sighed in relief. Zhao Ying turned and looked at him in confusion. Chuli lifted the man's shirt, and a whistling arrow was in his hand. He was a little late, and the arrow was shot into the sky. Chuli said, Sister Zhao, next time you encounter this situation, don't retreat. Zhao Ying nodded in embarrassment. He had almost made a big mistake just now. If the man had really shot the whistling arrow, he and Brother Chu would have been doomed. If a Xiantian master had come, they would have lost their lives. Chuli nodded. When you retreated just now, it was a human instinct, so experience is very important. Yes. Zhao Ying nodded and suddenly said, Brother Chu, this is also your first time leaving the house, right? It's in the books. Chuli pointed and smiled. That's why you have to read more. Sometimes it will save your life. Yes. Zhao Ying nodded vigorously. Previously, he had thought that martial arts was everything. Only with strong martial arts could he deal with danger. Studying was useless, as it would only delay his cultivation. If his martial arts were not strong, it would be useless no matter how much he knew. Now, it seemed that he had thought too lightly. He still had to read more books in addition to cultivation. Chuli bent down to pick up a knife and cut off the heads of the 7 men. He did it cleanly and calmly, as if he was cutting pork. Zhao Ying's face turned pale. She could kill, but she did not dare to look at the heads. She felt that Chuli was too cruel. They were already dead. No matter how big the hatred was, it should be gone. Chuli threw the knife away and dusted his hands. There was not a single drop of blood. He looked at Zhao Ying and shook his head. You think I'm cruel? They're already dead. Why bother? From what I know, some people's hearts are on the right side. Some people have cultivated some strange heart techniques and can fake their death. Really? Sister Zhao, you've become stupid after following that idiot Zhuo Feiyang. All you know is to cultivate and cultivate. It's as if mastering martial arts will make you invincible and solve everything. Isn't that so? This guy's heart is on the right side. Chuli pointed at one of the corpses. He cut open the skin with the tip of his sword, revealing a heart. Zhao Ying quickly waved her hand. She did not want to look, but she glanced at the heart. It was really on the right side. Chuli said, also, Zhuo Feiyang thinks that he's a genius and will become invincible, right? Zhao Ying nodded. Brother Zhuo is indeed a genius. Chuli laughed. Naive. No matter how much you cultivate in the public house, you won't become invincible. Why? Zhao Ying asked in surprise. Is there a problem with the heart technique? Chuli said, to become invincible, having a good heart technique is not enough. You also need talent. Brother Zhuo is very talented. Other than talent, you also need something else. To become a grandmaster, you have to go to a sect. This is considered a top secret. Sister Zhao, don't tell anyone. Why is that? Zhao Ying's attention was drawn to him. The two left the bloody scene and continued on their way. As they rode, Chuli said, artistic conception, from innate to innate, it doesn't rely on hard work. It's the state of mind and artistic conception. The major sects that have been passed down for more than 100 years usually have the secret realm of artistic conception. The public house has martial arts scriptures, but not the secret realm of artistic conception, so they can't become a grandmaster. Artistic conception, Zhao Ying muttered. Chuli said, this is a top secret that only rank 6 can come into contact with. You'll know about it in the future. I'm telling you in advance so you don't go astray. You have to focus on the accumulation of knowledge. If you blindly cultivate, your achievements will be limited. Brother Chu, according to what you're saying, one can only reach innate mastery in the public house. Yes, that's not right. There must be grandmasters in the public house, right? Of course. Then how do they cultivate? This is another top secret. Brother Chu, all right, there's no harm in telling you, but you have to promise me that you won't pass it on to outsiders. I swear I won't pass it on to anyone else. Yes, Chuli nodded. Actually, there's a system in the public house. Once you reach innate mastery, you'll enter a sect to cultivate. Sect? This is also a top secret, Chuli muttered. Although the High Duke's public house suppresses sects, they don't blindly suppress them. They have also roped in some of the sections. Innate masters will enter these sects to cultivate. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. This was a top secret. Based on what she knew, the public house helped the imperial court to suppress the martial arts world. Once the martial arts masters went crazy, the imperial court would not be able to stop them. They needed the help of the public house. To outsiders, the public house and the martial arts sects were irreconcilable enemies. Who would have thought that there was a secret collusion? Chuli looked at her. If this is leaked, do you know how serious the consequences will be? I'll die before I say anything. Zhaoying nodded. If the martial arts sects knew about this, they would definitely think of ways to kill these people. The public house's people would wither, and their strength would be greatly reduced. They would not be able to suppress the martial arts world, and there would be chaos. Chuli nodded in satisfaction. That's why the choice of martial arts is very important. It's related to the sects you'll join in the future. The delusion split has no future because the sects are already dead. If the Swallow Blade can enter the Terpsichore faction, you're lucky. The delusion split. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Chuli said, "You're not going to tell Zhou Feiyang, are you?" But Zhao Ying hesitated. Chuli scoffed. What do you want to say? Are you going to watch Zhou Feiyang walk down the wrong path? Don't worry. I'll use the delusion split to teach him a lesson. He won't practice it anymore. Zhou Feiyang might become a demon and practice the delusion split with all his might. Sigh. Chuli shook his head and sighed. Zhao Ying quickly said, Brother Chu, I'm not biased towards Zhou Feiyang. It's just that, whatever. Chuli shook his head. He's just an idiot. His achievements will be limited. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes at him. Chuli smiled. Do you think that I'm purposely belittling him? You two are really... He has a good body and a fast cultivation speed. That's not a problem. The problem is that he's ignorant and incompetent. Once he passes the innate mastery level, he'll have a hard time. Chapter 18. The two of them galloped for half an hour and traveled a few dozen miles. Just as they were about to leave the raging Tiger Mountain, Chuli reined in his horse again. Zhao Ying stopped her horse and looked forward. She had been on high alert and felt that there would be more than one group of robbers. Chuli frowned and looked into the distance. We have to be careful with these people. Brother, let me do it. Zhao Ying felt that she was not a good protector. Chuli shook his head. Three bald men slowly walked out from the opposite side. They were dressed the same as the 6 men from before. They were all middle-aged. Who are you? Chuli scoffed. You want to rob us in such a bright day? It's you, isn't it? A man as burly as a bear slowly walked out and stood 10 meters away from Chuli. His gaze was as sharp as a knife. You kill my men, right? I don't understand. Chuli shook his head. Who are you men? Good boy, you're playing dumb. The bald man sneered and glanced at Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying felt as if a knife was stabbing into her heart. She quickly took a deep breath to suppress her fear and coldly stared back. Chuli frowned and looked at him. Why are you playing dumb? Even I'm confused. Just tell me, what do you want? It's not you. The bald man looked them up and down. Logically, with the lady's beauty, his men would not have let her go. However, the 2 men did not seem to be skilled in martial arts. If they could kill his men, they were definitely not ordinary masters. Could it be that they were wrong and it was not them? You're so stupid. Chuli snorted and drew his sword. We have martial arts too. If we really fight, it's hard to say who will win. I'll say this first. We have no money. If that's the case, then leave the lady and get lost. The bald man waved his hand. Get lost before I get angry. Chuli's face darkened. He drew his sword and stabbed. Get lost. His sword was soft and weak. It was obvious that he had not mastered it yet. It was light and slow, not threatening at all. In this short period of time, the bald man's soul had been hooked by Zhao Ying. He felt that every frown and smile of hers was beautiful. She was simply a stunner created by the heavens. He absolutely could not let her go. How beautiful would she be if he could get her on the bed? 10th Lord, be careful. The loud roar behind him brought him back to his senses. He quickly channeled his energy, but felt a sharp pain in his chest. He widened his eyes and stared at Chu Li before lowering his head to look at his chest. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated, blood spurting out from his mouth. The two burly men behind him roared angrily and rushed over. Two blades fell down like a waterfall, fierce and overbearing. Instead of retreating, Chu Li advanced. In a flash, he appeared behind one of the men. His sword flashed, and the tip of his sword pierced through the man's chest. Chu Li pulled his sword out, and before the other man could react, the tip of his sword had already pierced through his heart. In the blink of an eye, Chu Li thrust his sword 3 times and pierced through the hearts of the 3 men. He stopped and leaned on his sword, panting. His face was pale. Zhao Ying was dumbfounded. Chu Li's body was like a ghost, and his sword was like a flash of light. She felt a chill run down her spine. She was powerless against such swordsmanship. Zhao Ying. Chu Li coughed softly. Zhao Ying came back to her senses and hurriedly went to help him up. Senior Brother Chu, are you all right? She saw that Chu Li's face was pale. It was obvious that the 3 swords had a price. Once he attacked, he went all out and even stimulated his potential. She secretly sighed to herself. Chu Li waved his hand and did not let her help him up. I'll be fine after some rest. It's not safe to stay here for long. Let's go. He underestimated the overbearing power of the infinite azure sea. After 3 times, the burden on his meridians was not just 3 times, but 9 times. If it was not for his strong meridians, he would have died this time. Okay. Zhao Ying quickly nodded. Give them 2 more slashes. Chu Li said. Zhao Ying gritted her teeth and nodded. She picked up a blade from the ground and ruthlessly stabbed them on both sides of their hearts. She could not bear to decapitate them. Chu Li did not force her. Before Zhao Ying could throw the blade away, he called out, "This blade is not bad, right?" Zhao Ying was stunned. She was too nervous just now and did not realize that the blade was really sharp. Chu Li said, "Keep it, it's a good blade. Let's take a look at the other 2 as well." Zhao Ying walked over and picked up the other 2 blades. She chopped at the trees beside them. They were all unusually sharp. Although they could not cut through iron like mud, they were much sharper than normal blades. Once they were in a fight, they would be at an advantage. Chu Li nodded. Stay, let's go. Let's go. Zhao Ying quickly nodded. They cleaned the 3 blades, unsheathed them, tied them to the saddles, and galloped away. Chu Li sat on the horse, motionlessly. Zhao Ying glanced at him from time to see his expression. Brother Chu, let's find a place to rest. No need, let's go. We need to leave the Raging Tiger Mountain as soon as possible. You're hurt? I'm fine. Why are you in such a hurry? What if you encounter another robber? I'll leave it to you, sister. Me? Zhao Ying was stunned and said in shame, I'm really useless. Chu Li laughed. Your rank is still too low, but I'm a protector. Brother Chu, you're scribe. Zhao Ying gritted her teeth and scoffed. Next time, leave it to me. Chu Li smiled and nodded. I'll leave it to you, Sister Zhao. I hope we won't encounter another robber. Zhao Ying sighed. 15 minutes after she said that, they encountered another wave of robbers. 10 burly men came out of the forest, laughing. They lined up and blocked the road. They wore short brown clothes and had messy hair. They held long knives in their hands, and their faces were fierce. They stared at Zhao Ying greedily, as if looking at her was worth it. Zhao Ying turned to look at Chu Li. His face was still pale. Chu Li smiled at her. Zhao Ying took a deep breath. She pressed on the saddle and shouted, Hey, what are you doing? A burly man with a bare upper body came out and stared at Zhao Ying with bright eyes. Hee, young lady, greetings. Let's invite you up the mountain as a guest. I'm not interested. Get out of the way. We need to hurry, Zhao Ying shouted. Hee. Little lady, you can eat and drink good food on the mountain. It's so enjoyable. I guarantee that you won't go down the mountain again. The naked man chuckled and said, It's better than living as an immortal. Zhao scoffed with a cold face. If you don't move, don't blame me for being rude. Hee hee. Young lady, we're both sincere. The burly man smiled. Who's that pretty boy? None of your business. Zhao said snappily. The burly man nodded. Looks like he's the young lady's sweetheart. He looks so sick. How about this? We have a doctor in the mountain. We can bring him up the mountain to have a look and cure him. No need, Zhao scoffed. Chu shook his head and sighed. All right, let's do it. Stop talking to them. All right, Zhao shouted. I'll say it again. Move, or I'll do it. Come, come. I want to see the young lady's martial arts. The burly man laughed. The other burly men laughed. Yes, yes, let's see the young lady's martial arts. Although Zhao was innocent, she was not ignorant. She could tell that they were referring to something else. In her anger, her face was covered with frost. She pulled out her sword and stabbed. The burly man dodged it easily. His burly body was unusually agile. Zhao used the swallow sword technique. Her movements were light and graceful. The burly man was empty-handed and did not use his knife. He only relied on his body technique to deal with her. He teased her and angered her. Chu shook his head and did not say much. These were all experiences that she needed to accumulate. She would not improve if she did not suffer. After more than 50 moves, Zhao was a little impatient. She did not expect this wretched-looking burly man to be so difficult. She could not take him down. There were still 9 more. Just thinking about it made her feel hopeless. Chu Li's voice was heard. Use your wits and not your strength. Zhao was stunned. She could not act recklessly. There was still Chu Li. He was injured and could not fight. If she failed, both of them would die here. Thinking of this, she secretly said, Don't rush, don't rush. I'll think of a way slowly. Her sword suddenly stabilized and became light and graceful again. However, the power was stronger. The burly man secretly frowned. He did not expect this delicate lady to have such a powerful sword technique. It would not be easy to take her down. He would lose face in front of his brothers. Big brother, do you need us to help? The crowd laughed after asking. Big brother, you can't handle it alone. Let us help you. We must take this lady down. The crowd laughed. They were overjoyed and screamed. Chu Li shook his head. These words were just to confuse people. However, these people were so unscrupulous. It seemed that they had done a lot of bad things because of the Raging Tiger Troop. The Raging Tiger Troop. He took a deep breath and frowned. He wondered if he could uproot the Raging Tiger Troop. They were a disaster. He could not let them live. Unfortunately, his strength was weak. It would be difficult to fight against the Raging Tiger Troop. All of you shut up. Stop. Gather. EBN School Bay G Magpie School. I think it's going to be difficult. Big brother, don't force yourself. It's okay to leave some soup for your brothers. That's right. Big brother, you can't keep all the benefits to yourself. Such a beauty. She's the best. I haven't seen one in a long time. My heart feels like it's being scratched by a cat. Big brother, hurry up. All of you shut up. The man roared. His palm technique suddenly changed from gentle to fierce. It was like an iron palm that met the long sword. Bang! The palm and the sword collided. Zhao Ying's sword was pushed away. She was shocked. The huge force that came from the sword almost made it fly away. This guy had guts. He dared to fight the sword with his bare hands. Bang, 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 bang. The palm and the sword continued to collide. Zhao Ying's sword was pushed away. The force on the sword was getting stronger and stronger. Chu Li looked at Zhao Ying. She was like a swallow in the wind. She could be swallowed at any time, but she was still trying her best to fly. He nodded to himself. Although she was kind and weak, she would fight hard at crucial times. Ah! The man suddenly screamed. Zhao Ying pulled out her sword and retreated. The man held his shoulder and stared at Zhao Ying in shock. Zhao Ying's face was covered with frost. She stared at the people in front of her and said, If you don't move away, he will be the one to die. Ha! Everyone laughed. Big brother, you're at a disadvantage, aren't you? I told you that you can't keep everything to yourself. You still need help from your brothers. Everyone laughed at them. They did not take Zhao Ying and Chu Li seriously at all. They had seen through Zhao Ying's martial arts. She could not defeat her alone. However, if everyone attacked together, she would definitely fall. As for the sickly pretty boy, he might not even be able to move. He was not a threat at all. They were imagining the wonderful feeling of holding such a beautiful lady in their arms. Everyone smiled. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.